respect throughout the balconies of Monaco and indeed on the grid, Peter, and not a bathrobe in sight. They've all got dressed in honour of that wonderful and rather long national anthem.
Sport itself there in the royal box, ready to watch and see who becomes the winner of the 2002 Monaco Grand Prix.
Yes, and along in the box with his sister, Princess Caroline, of course, His Serene Highness Prince Rainier of Monaco, the ruling monarch in this principality. But it's a funny story about Prince Albert. When he was studying in America, doing some business studies, he wasn't known as Prince Albert, he was known as Al Grimaldi. And it's sort of hard to believe that somebody as serene and dignified as a member of this royal family would be comfortable known as Al Grimaldi, but many of his friends still call him that. It's just how they know him.
Well, the Grimaldi royal family, very much the monarchs of this principality. And Prince Rainier, of course, has been in hospital quite a lot recently, having to deal with recurring bouts of bronchitis, but he's out of hospital now, which is great news, and no doubt be able to enjoy the action, the atmosphere here this weekend. The safety car making its way around the track in preparation for the start of the formation lap, coming up in some 3.5 minutes time. A quick reminder of the layout of this unique circuit. The speed trap coming out after the tunnel, where we'll see speeds about 180 miles an hour. It's just the area you're looking at now as they get on the brakes after the tunnel into the chicane. Again, one of the tight corners, many first gear corners around this 2-mile track.
And top speed here, while it's useful, it's not the biggest criteria. Just looking down at the record from last year, it was Ralf Schumacher, in fact, was the fastest car out of the tunnel just before you hit the brakes to go into the chicane at 182.7 miles an hour. And David Coulthard was about a mile an hour behind him. And speaking of David Coulthard, there's the current squeeze. David enjoys living down in Monte Carlo and all that goes with it.
So let's just take another quick reminding look at the grid. Juan Pablo Montoya, David Coulthard on the front row. Michael Schumacher with brother Ralph in 4th place, his best qualifying performance here in 6 starts of the Monaco Grand Prix. Barrichello has 3 times finished 2nd, including last year and in 1997 when he was driving the Stewart. Now Raikkonen lines up in 6th place, then it's Jarno Trulli. Disappointed a little bit for the Renaults with 7th and 8th places on the grid for them, but Button enjoying his best start so far. Then Sarlo and McNish on the grid, behind him Fisichella and Frentzen. And then further on we've got Massa, Villeneuve, Enrique Bernoldi in the arrows ahead of Takuma Sato. Then Nick Heidfeld, Olivier Panis, Mark Webber in the Minardi, De La Rosa, the Spaniard, in the Jaguar ahead of Eddie Irvine, and Alex Young, who will be starting at the back of the grid, and no doubt will have been told by Paul Stoddart and the crew at Minardi on the first lap, just drop back a little bit and let everybody else have the accident.
Yeah, just looking at that shot of the heat haze coming off the tarmac. And they've got a track temperature currently around about 35. Well, it's actually just dropped a couple of degrees, but it fluctuates as the odd little wisp of cloud comes across. So track temperature is absolutely perfect. Certainly ideal for Michelin, and no doubt ideal for Bridgestone as well. And it will be, when they go round in this final parade lap, that nerves will be jangling as they come onto the grid. And of course, on pole position, you get there first. And depending how quickly the rest of the field filters around behind you, ideally for Montoya, when I would get to the swimming pool, I would bring the pace of the field down to a level to allow those behind me to catch up. The problem is that if you go too slow, then you get too much heat build up under the engine cockpit, under the engine covers. So it's a balance, and you know, first time on the front row here in Monte Carlo is very special. Fortunately, Ben, they've taken away the pedestrian crossings, and Montoya will be starting on pure black top and no white lines to straddle.
That's good news, John. Yes, let's hope that he gets cleanly away from that starting pole position. He's on scrub tyres, as you can see, for the start of this race. Will the Michelins hold out, or is it purely a qualifying performance? Look at David's tyres. They look a little less well scrubbed. I think they are scrub tyres. Difficult to see from the other side there, glinting in the sunshine, but it looks as though Montoya's have done a few more laps probably than Coulthard's. Michael Schumacher is the first of the Ferraris. Watch where he is, just in behind Montoya. And then, of course, Ralf Schumacher also on the 2nd row of the grid. So we're almost set for the beginning of the formation lap.
Watch for the rubber being laid, because all the launch control systems are going to be switched off. And they do that to put down as much fresh rubber as possible in the hope that when they line up, they'll get it precisely on those strips of rubber, but of course then with the benefit of launch control.
So the 22 cars making their way around the 2-mile track on this formation lap in preparation for the 7th round of the FIA Formula One World Championship. Juan Pablo Montoya, Indy 500 winner a couple of years ago, now looking to add the Monaco Grand Prix to his list of successes. But he's got David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher right behind, both former winners around this track. The mechanics and support crews now make their way back to the pit lane to squeeze into their respective areas, and the fans getting a good view of all 22 cars making their way around. It looks as though everyone's got off the line safely. We do not have the dramas of last year where David Coulthard was left stranded on his pole position. Everybody is away cleanly, and let's just hope they make it around this formation lap in one piece, and we'll get ready for the race start. Blasting out into the sunshine on the exit of the tunnel. Montoya must be careful to bunch everybody up and slow everybody down now, because they get very, very spread out around this track, and he does not want to be sitting on the grid too long in pole position, so he's got to control the pace now a little bit on the latter part of the lap. Make sure everybody gets bunched up close behind him, and then they can fan out into position on the grid itself. There you can see he's beginning to slow everybody down. A little blast along the back there just to keep the tyre temperature up. Now, going slowly, don't let the engine stall. They all have anti-stall devices now, which is probably a good thing when they're all cruising around very slowly to bring the cars onto the grid. We've seen problems in the past when people have had to go very slowly through Rascasse and around onto the main start-finish area. Mika Salo starting his 100th Grand Prix here today, driving for Toyota. He's driven for a number of the top teams in Formula One over the years. Can Williams take their first win in 19 years? Looking all the way back to 1983 since they last had a victory at Monaco. They've had a win this season, but not a win at Monaco in a long, long time. On board there with David Coulthard. Starts in second place, up on the outside with Montoya on the inside. That crucial inside line into the first corner, Saint-Devote, where we've seen so many incidents in the past. The last few cars now moving into position. 78 laps of the Monaco Grand Prix are set to run. The red light sequence begins. All 5 lights will come on. When they go out, the race will get underway. It's a quick getaway, and Coulthard makes a brilliant start on board with the race leader. He's got ahead of Montoya. Stunning start from Coulthard. Montoya down into second place. The Ferrari of Schumacher is in third place, chased by Ralf Schumacher, and we have a problem for Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve is left stranded as everybody makes it safely through the first corner.
Great start from David Coulthard. Juan Pablo Montoya just couldn't get the car off the line. Maybe again that tension we talked about, but Coulthard for sure, blinding start from the Scotsman, and I suspect also aided by the fact that he's got a car a little bit lighter than Juan Pablo Montoya's, and all aided David to make that brilliant blinding start at the Saint-Devote.
Now the midfield trying to struggle their way through the hairpins on this first lap. Sometimes you can get a bit of bumping and barging going on, and you can get a traffic jam develop, but it looks as though that midfield section has got through this Grand Hotel hairpin. There is Jacques Villeneuve's car being pushed away, and that is great disappointment for the Canadian. His race is already run. He started down in 14th, but some sort of mechanical problem has put him out.
And a very good start from Jarno Trulli. He's contained his 5th position. 2 Jordans running nose to tail, Fisichella and Sato. Good job from Sato, leaping all the way up from 16th place up to 12th.
So, on the first lap, it is David Coulthard. A breathtaking getaway in the McLaren Mercedes, putting behind him what happened to him here last year when his car wouldn't get off the line on the formation lap. It's Coulthard who leads, Montoya in second, Michael Schumacher is in third, ahead of Ralf Schumacher, then Trulli in a good 5th, Raikkonen is in 6th.
And Rubens Barrichello, he's been a loser, started 5th, down to 7th. Mika Salo also leaping up to 8th place, starting 9th in the grid.
Well, Mika Salo and Alan McNish still running in tandem as they qualified, running 8th and 9th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 10th place, ahead of Fisichella and ahead of Sato as well. You're watching Michael Schumacher, and it's the battle that we've enjoyed several times this season between Michael Schumacher and Montoya.
Now watch the start. Montoya moves, but I believe David Coulthard's got a much lighter fuel load on. He gets the traction and then just shoots alongside Montoya, takes the lead.
Big problem for Button there. Button did not get off the line at all, and he's down in 17th position.
Bogged down, but David Coulthard got the job done into Saint-Deveau, took the lead. Michael Schumacher couldn't do anything with Juan Pablo Montoya. Good to see everybody, the 21 car field, remember Jacques Villeneuve. There's the momentary roll. Montoya comes across. David just drives his McLaren alongside, then shuts the door.
Well, it was a perfect start for David Coulthard. There is Norbert Haug, Mika Hakkinen, and you could see the relish with which they saw those pictures. Now, Villeneuve apparently has got going again. They've got the car started in the pit lane, so they have got Villeneuve into the race. He's not an early retirement. All the cars are still running, but Villeneuve, of course, right at the very back of the field. Coulthard leads, 2 laps completed here at Monaco. Montoya second, then it's Michael Schumacher hounding the Williams.
Now that Montoya's got a couple of laps under his belt, he's settled down, had the fastest race lap in lap 2. Now he can focus on David Coulthard ahead of him and not be so concerned about that red Ferrari of Michael Schumacher directly in his mirrors.
A little bit of a twitch from Montoya's car, down into Mirabeau. Trulli goes through, then it's Raikkonen, Barrichello, and then Mika Salo running in 8th place. Alan McNish, the 2 Toyotas, you'll see them just come into view at the back of this group. Behind them, Frentzen, Fisichella, Sato. Felipe Massa is 13th, that's where he started. Then it's Bernoldi, Heidfeld 15th, Panis is 16th. Jenson Button, who had a disastrous getaway, down in 17th place ahead of Mark Webber, and Webber has kept his advantage over the 2 Jags. De La Rosa, Irvine at the back.
There we see Jacques Villeneuve getting back into the... He's now 1 lap down on the field. So he's only about 20 seconds. There's already going to be interest in the next 5 or so laps. Jacques Villeneuve 20 seconds ahead of this leading group of 4 cars. Montoya once again fastest car on track, but Michael Schumacher corner for corner going with him.
So on board with the 4 times world champion Michael Schumacher, chasing after Juan Pablo Montoya. Uses a different line there on the run down towards Saint-Deveau.
Well, of course, different tyres, different field. Michael Schumacher clearly knows what he's got to do in the race. We saw Ross Brawn, we saw Michael Schumacher sitting on the pit wall before this race started. They've got some tricks up their sleeve, and watch this race. They will unfold very soon, no doubt.
Further back, you're looking at the battle between Panis Button and Mark Webber. Take another look and look for Jenson Button on the right-hand side. Jenson Button moved and then stopped. It looked as though he almost jumped the start or something went wrong. He pulls over and everybody manages to avoid him. Villeneuve was completely stranded.
Yes, Villeneuve got stranded. I suspect for Jenson Button, one of those systems went down. They've got duplicate systems on board, and he may have been able to activate that, but what a start for Jenson Button, who was alongside his Renault teammate on the 4th row of the grid, now all the way down in 17th place on a very hard work in prospect this afternoon.
Michael Schumacher, the sun glinting off the Ferrari and holding 3rd position in these very early laps here at Monaco. Time to settle down into a little bit of a rhythm, and that's what is so crucial at this track. Getting into the rhythm, just being able to balance the car between the Armco barriers and keeping it away from the edge of the track, but still driving on the limit.
And they've got the top 9 cars equidistant apart, about a second between the top 9 cars. Then in 10th place, Frentzen a further 3.5 seconds behind Alan McNish, who is the last of that chain of 9 cars.
Coulthard heads up the hill, his advantage 1.2 seconds over Montoya, and then Schumacher with Ralph holding on in 4th position in the 2nd of the Williams BMWs.
But Ralph Schumacher, best lap 4. So the 2nd of the 2 Williams BMWs pushing now. Ralph keen to sandwich even tighter right his brother Michael, with Montoya leading that little group of 3 cars.
Patrick Head, the technical director at Williams, watching this, disappointed no doubt to have seen that Coulthard managed to get ahead of their man into that first corner. It was a clean move and Coulthard just rocketed off the line. The suspicion perhaps that the Williams is with more fuel on board at the start of this race. In fact, they've closed up a bit there to Coulthard as they come under braking, but perhaps Montoya's car running with more fuel, and if he can stay with Coulthard throughout this first segment of the race, it might come back to him later on.
And these first 4 cars now pulling away from Jarno Trulli in the Renault in 5th, but also the battle of the 2 Toyotas. Mika Salo is getting a lot of attention from Alan McNish's teammate, and it'll be interesting to see whether Toyota decide to let that situation remain or say, McNish, you're quicker, Salo, let him go past, let him use that speed to try to catch up to Rubens Barrichello, who is pulling away from Mika Salo.
They flash across the line once again beneath the gaze of the spectators, packed together in the balconies of the buildings here at Monaco. And again, the top three flash by in an instant. All three cars just covered by 1.4 seconds, and it's only another fraction back to Ralf Schumacher. Then Jarno Trulli is running in fifth place, a little further down the order. Look at Michael, very, very close there to the back of Juan Pablo Montoya's Williams.
Well, also David Coulthard on that last lap was about 0.4 of a second down on Montoya and Michael Schumacher. Suddenly pressure coming from Michael Schumacher, who's passing it on to David Coulthard, probably because of this man Ralf Schumacher, who's driving those three cars ahead of him harder and harder.
Yes, the man who has the fastest lap in this race so far. Montoya even forced to defend a little bit down into the chicane.
But you can see Montoya beginning to defend. This is where the difference in the tyres is maybe going to start showing his face. With some 7 laps down. So Juan Pablo Montoya under pressure from Michael Schumacher. Michael with the Bridgestone tyres able to push and make Montoya react.
Button confirmation that he jumped the start. Take another look at it there. You can see this. Watch the car beginning to go before the others. And then he stopped. It seems a bit unfair in a way that he has a drive-through penalty when he dropped a huge number of places, but that is the law of the Formula One rules, and he has to put up with the fact that he will have to come into the pits and back out again.
And on top of that, he dropped away at the start, so really a disappointing Grand Prix for Jenson Button and for Renault, starting again alongside his teammate on that fourth row of the grid. Could have been in line for more points for himself and for the team.
So it's becoming a four-way battle as Jenson Button comes through for his drive-through penalty. It's a slower pit lane speed limit here at Monaco than anywhere else.
60 kilometers per hour, 45 miles an hour through the pit lane. And if he exceeds that on this drive-through penalty, then he'll have to come in and do it all over again. But look at this, the battle at the front. 3 cars now covered by a second. There was a second between them a couple of laps ago. Now Montoya, watch Michael Schumacher. He was going to try and force Montoya to brake late as they come into the chicane. He's looking. He can't pass him, but he wants Montoya to make the error so as he can make the pass through that.
Well, there's been some great needle between these two this year. Some good challenges. Gerhard Berger, former Grand Prix driver himself, now the boss of BMW Motorsport, watching this battle very closely indeed. He wants to see that Williams BMW up front and certainly not passed by the Ferrari. Remember, Michael Schumacher leads the World Drivers' Championship by almost twice the number of points of Montoya, who's ahead of him in this race.
But Michael Schumacher is potentially the fastest of all these 4 cars. And I think what we're saying is that the Bridgestone tyres come to the circuit. It may be fuel-related as well. But you're watching Montoya and David Coulthard are having to wait. They can't get the power on in the corners as early as they would like. You can hear going through the swimming pool, particularly on the exit of the swimming pool. Listen here.
Oh, they're getting bunched up there. Look at this, Coulthard. I don't know if he made a mistake, but Montoya really close right up to the back of Coulthard there, and it almost sounded as though he had to lift in the middle of the corner.
Well, he had to, because Coulthard was so slow coming into the Casino Square that Montoya had to get out of the throttle altogether. Now Coulthard under extreme pressure from Pablo Montoya. Montoya may try to get a drive here out of the Portier into the tunnel. Very difficult place to do it. He's got to keep himself clean because Michael Schumacher will be all over him if any opportunity arises.
This is fantastic racing. Formula One at its best. 4 cars battling for the lead around the streets of Monaco. And again, Montoya very quick into the chicane. And we look back from Montoya's car. 2nd place, looking back at the 3rd place Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. And look behind them because it's younger brother, Ralf Schumacher, closing up in the 2nd Williams. And all 4 cars covered by a 1.5 seconds last time around. I think it's going to be even less than that when they come over the line this time. Look at them.
Well, there's nothing that anybody really can do. David Coulthard's controlling the pace, whether it's because he's got a little bit of a problem with the handling of the car or whether he's decided, I don't need to run hard, I can run at the pace I dictate. None of these cars behind me have got the opportunity, unless an unforced error occurs, to take away my lead.
So avoiding errors is what it's all about, not making any mistakes as they wind their way through up to about 140 miles an hour, now down to 80 miles an hour through the left-hander. This is the view from onboard Montoya, looking at race leader David Coulthard. And let's look at this, down into Mirabeau, close in behind, and now into the tightest corner on the track. First gear, full lock, tight to get it round there. In the past, we've seen people try and go through. Sometimes it's happened, but often it's only caused a traffic jam. So now through the tunnel, David Coulthard, our race leader, still with huge amount of pressure on from Juan Pablo Montoya. Right behind him is Michael Schumacher. Once again, let's just ride on for a second with Montoya. Well, we jump back looking at the battle. There is Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher right behind him. Look at the super slow-mo and look at the car working at high speeds over these curves.
And really, you can see the way the different cars, the two lead cars, moving around, I think, more than the Ferrari is. And that I put down to the difference between the two tyres. Now, a little bit of breathing space between the first three. They were bunched up together the last couple of laps. You can't drive a Grand Prix so close to your competitor. You've got to give yourself a bit of breathing space. You've got to give the car a chance, because engine temperatures run marginal at best in these cars. And if there's not enough air going through the air intakes into the engine and into the radiators, you'll have a temperature problem. It'll go up.
Once again, riding with Montoya. Down into Mirabeau. You can see the front wheel hopping into the air of the Ferrari. And that is the Ferrari on the limit, running in third place. But look at Ralf Schumacher in fourth now.
And Schumacher teased Montoya. He just stuck the Ferrari out to the left to put it into the mirror of the Williams for Montoya just to catch it in his eye. No intention of passing, but just to try and distract the Colombian driver.
So the top six, it's Coulthard, Montoya, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher. And look at this, the battle continues. Behind these four cars, still in fifth place is Jarno Trulli, and in sixth place is Kimi Räikkönen. Through to back corner, now into the fast left-right at the swimming pool section of track. Once again, Coulthard has that advantage, being up front, controlling the pace. Montoya has to keep an eye on his mirrors, but also looks for any opportunity in a chink in David Coulthard's armour to sneak through into the lead himself.
The real frustration for Montoya is that he knows David Coulthard is slow on some parts of the track. Okay, getting a little bit of advantage coming out onto the straight, he picks up the speed. But once we get up to the top of the circuit, the top that you climb all the way up now through Beau Rivage and then into the Casino Square, that's where everybody then catches up to the McLaren Mercedes-Benz, and all of a sudden then the pace slows down, particularly in those hairpin bends that we're going to start coming to as we get down to the bottom of the hill as we come into the Mirabeau corner.
Now let's ride with Michael Schumacher for a moment. Can he find any space here? Almost having to coast it round a couple of the corners there. It's slow speed off the throttle, and now the engine gets a chance to work up to nearly 18,000 revs per minute, as you can see from the rev counter. Diving down into the chicane once again, and then back on the throttle. That V10 engine, 3-litre engine, producing around 850 horsepower, and all those horsepower being used in the chase of Montoya, and up front, David Coulthard.
And this battle that's going on for the lead, and of course Ralf Schumacher directly behind brother Michael, is all about not making mistakes, but at the same time trying to just distract the car in front of you. Just put your car, move it around a little bit, and there are some parts of the track where Michael Schumacher's already been doing that. David Coulthard, I think, has just taped his mirrors up. He's not concerned about what's going on behind him. He's driving forward, not looking back. Schumacher again taking that unusual entry into Saint-Denis corner, protecting his line, so as Ralf Schumacher doesn't get the opportunity, or thinks an opportunity could arise.
So now things beginning to settle down between these top four, the rhythm beginning to be established. Coulthard has withstood one or two very close moments, if you like, when Montoya closed right onto his gearbox, but nobody prepared to do anything outrageous. It really is a huge risk to try and launch yourself down the inside of another car, unless that car has given you massive amount of room. The streets of Monaco are so narrow, barely able to get two cars alongside one another, and at some of those corners like the hairpin, they cannot get around side by side. Ross Brawn at Ferrari and the Williams technicians also keeping a very close eye on the situation. This one is going to take some sorting out.
Just looking at those times, Ben, they dropped down to a middle 1 minute 24. Now Coulthard's picked up the pace again to a 1 minute 22. So whatever David Coulthard's doing, or whatever the difficulties he's experiencing, he maybe just, as you go through this sort of cycle of tyre life, how the tyre comes to you, then how it maybe drops off, and then it stabilizes, and then the time comes back. So I think we saw that round about laps 8, 9, now on lap 10 and 11, on the 12th lap, we just completed the 12th lap, times back to where they were much earlier in this Grand Prix.
Ralf Schumacher, who was very close to his brother a moment ago, now has just dropped back a little bit. In the background you can see Jarno Trulli in the Renault running in 5th position. Kimi Raikkonen in the 2nd McLaren Mercedes is still 6th. The Ferrari of Barrichello runs in 7th. Mika Salo in the Toyota is 8th. McNish 9th in the other Toyota, and then Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Arrows is next up. And this is Jenson Button trying to find a way past Eddie Irvine.
And I think poor Jenson Button's got 2 chances to find a way past Eddie Irvine around this circuit. He's a master of the Monaco circuit, and neither chance unless Eddie makes a...
Controlling the battle here. It's tough for Jenson Button, and what a disappointment too, because the Renault car has been very, very quick here all weekend. Jarno Trulli, his teammate, topping the timesheets on Thursday and indeed on Saturday morning, only for the cars to perform not quite so well in qualifying, and for both Button and Trulli to find themselves on the 4th row of the grid. All that's gone behind him now with the jump start penalty.
But further ahead of those 2 cars, Irvine and Button, there's a real battle royal still continuing between the 2 Toyotas of Mika Salo and Alan McNish. There's less than a second between those 2 teammates, and still no indication from the Toyota pits that they might want McNish to use that extra speed that he appears to have over his teammate.
Well, in fact, the 2 of them are not far behind Barrichello as well, so that's all a very close confrontation that's going on. We've got the battle up front with us once again here. Coulthard with just a little bit of breathing space over Montoya. And we look now from Montoya's car once again, looking over the rear wing. Notice how those rear wheels work and move, the suspension operating a little bit more fully here around the streets of Monaco. But that Ferrari behind, threatening every second.
And once again, it's Ralf Schumacher really the quickest of this bunch of 4 cars. Ralf just dropped back momentarily, then using that opportunity to get a run back up to the rear of his Ferrari, his brother's Ferrari. And nothing much Ralf can do because Michael's fully focused on Juan Pablo Montoya. So just try to squeeze Michael, force him into looking backwards to take some of the heat off Juan Pablo Montoya in 2nd place.
In the battle of the tyre companies, we've got Michelin running 1 and 2, Bridgestone in 3rd place, but that Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, the only Bridgestone tyre user in the top 6 currently, with Barrichello down in 7th place, and then the next Bridgestone user down in 10th place. That's Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Arrows. So the Michelin tyres worked in qualifying, and because they worked in qualifying, that means they've sustained good positions in the race, with overtaking being so difficult around this 2-mile track.
Michael Schumacher very, very late, very hard on the brakes in the chicane, almost got close to overrunning into the rear of Juan Pablo Montoya. So whether that's just frustration or just momentarily lapse in Michael's concentration, or maybe just deliberately just trying once again to keep Juan Pablo Montoya honest, keep him on his toes, because getting past is difficult, and if you can force your competitor into an error, then that will make your job much, much easier.
Oh, Montoya gets it very sideways out of the last corner. I think he managed to keep it off the wall, but that was very close.
Well, that's the kind of error that can cause you to lose places. Just close, just getting within an inch or 2 of the barrier like that. Next time round, you might think, I've got away with it, I can go that much closer. No, you tag the barrier, tag a wall, and that could be certainly a pit stop at best, and at worst, it could be the end of your Grand Prix.
Watching this view, we can see how close Michael Schumacher gets to the barrier in a number of places, and you can really see, and that's one of the Toyotas, and I think it's McNish. It is Alan McNish. So what a shame for the Scotsman, who's been driving superbly well here. From 9th position, he was following his teammate. And, well, you said, John, it only takes the slightest mistake when we watched Montoya. Perhaps that's what's happened here for McNish. We'll have to take a look at the replay. May well have been another car involved in that. But for Alan McNish, I'm afraid his Monaco debut is over on lap number 15.
Well, that's very disappointing for the young Scotsman, because he'd been driving superbly all weekend. To end up in the barriers at Saint-Devoux, it's a pretty easy place to find yourself off track. You just make a little error turning in, catch the curb, but more so the barrier on the inside. Let's look again and see. That's his teammate Mika Salo. Oh yes, he did catch that curb, and in fact I think it was almost the right rear, and that almost sent him off diagonally into the left, into the barrier at Saint-Devoux. The gap between them had probably opened up momentarily. McNish just trying to get some clear air to have another charge up to the back of Mika Salo, who now runs in clear air in 8th place. Frentzen will move up 1 place, up to 9th.
Yes, Frentzen did a good job to adjust his line as he came through the corner, missed the back of McNish's car. We've seen that quite often, where somebody goes off and others behind have no option other to run into them. So, McNish is out of this race. He is our first retirement, in fact. Villeneuve is still running. He is a lap down, but after making, not getting away on the line, Villeneuve then restarted from pit lane, and he is running in what it will be now, 21st position.
In the meantime, things have settled down at the front. Coulthard's tyres appear to be stable. Looks like Montoya and Ralf Schumacher have got a similar situation with their Michelin tyres. Michael Schumacher's never really given us an opportunity to see what the potential of Bridgestone and Ferrari are able to do. At this point, we're on lap 17 of 78. Nevertheless, we will know when the pit stops come. Expecting one pit stop from each of these teams. Can't imagine that anybody's going to do something more dramatic, such as a two-stop strategy.
No, the only question, I think, John, is when will they make their one stop? Will it be relatively halfway through the race, or sometimes as much as 2/3 of the way through the race? Of course, the later the stop, the less fuel they'll have to put in when they make the stop, and potential to get out a little quicker.
And again, Montoya, as he comes onto the start-finish straight, he lets the back of the Williams, he kicks it out. Now, whether he's got an understeer problem, he's trying to mitigate it by getting the back end out and tighten the front of the car, or whether that's just maybe a little bit of excessive rear tyre wear. We must keep an eye on that left rear of Juan Pablo Montoya's Williams BMW.
Now, they've all closed up a little bit to the race leader, David Coulthard. He had a little more of an advantage last time around, but it's down to 0.8 of a second again. As you can see, Montoya definitely that close, a little bit closer to Coulthard. Now, let's see what happened here. This was the run down to Mirabeau. Alex Young in the second of the Minardis, lost the back end under braking. Did he keep it out of the barrier? Oh, yes, I think he did.
But Ben, in the process of doing that, he actually had the highest speed in that braking zone. So, out of a mistake, a driving error, he actually records 202 kilometers per hour, which is about 125 miles an hour before he got under the brakes. But that was the consequence of braking late and getting the car out of shape into the Mirabeau corner.
So Alex Young survives, but he stays down in 20th position. Now, look at Michael Schumacher. Really, again, hounding Montoya, as we saw just a few laps ago. They're sort of closing up, then spreading out again, just depending on the tyre performance as they go through this first sequence of laps. P2 for Juan Pablo Montoya, looking for only his second Grand Prix victory. Winner at Monza last year, and you can see that they're closing up to Jacques Villeneuve, a lap down already after the problems at the start of the race, and the leaders will be on him fairly soon.
Yes, and this will be a problem for these lead cars, not so maybe much for David Coulthard, but for Montoya, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher. Once David Coulthard gets past, the other three will want to go through pretty quickly. But as we've seen in the past, Villeneuve has been very generous to lead cars when they're coming through. And I've no doubt that when he sees these four cars, really 1, 2, 3, 4, he will just simply pull over and let them go through. But it depends whereabouts on this racetrack they catch up to him. And to some degree, David Coulthard can control that and use that to his advantage.
Down into the chicane once more. There is Villeneuve, about to see the leaders come up behind him, and he will, of course, be given blue flags around the track. And I'm sure you're right, John, he will do his best to get out of the way, although there are some parts of this Monaco circuit where you really can't even get out of the way. You almost have to be on one particular line to even be able to get around the corner. Coming up through Rascasse now, the last couple of right-handers, first gear, very slow, get the power on, as McNish has now made his way back to the pit lane.
Yes, and explaining to team boss Uwe Anderson what went wrong, and I think it's pretty clear. We saw the replay. Alan caught the right rear, he's just a little bit too close to the curb and the barrier on the apex of that Saint-Deveau corner, and that then just launched the car, as we saw with Alex Young in qualifying on Saturday afternoon.
Now here was Sarlo under attack from Frentzen a moment ago, and Frentzen, it looks like he got through, but Sarlo, did he have a problem there? Oh, and Fisichella almost managed to... No, in fact, that was Sato. Sato who was there, not Fisichella. So there's an interesting little battle that was going on. Frentzen now finds himself in 8th, Sarlo 9th, Sato in 10th, and Fisichella is in 11th.
Well, that was a very, very good move by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and a very difficult part of the circuit to pass. You're coming out of that tunnel at near enough 180 miles an hour, and you come around the curve, then suddenly the track drops away from you, and immediately ahead of you is that chicane.
Going past Villeneuve, Villeneuve's backed right off and let the four leaders through. No problem at all. It has opened things up just a little bit, but Villeneuve moving out of the way, and Coulthard gets through safely. Now, here, look, the two Jordans, Sato Takuma Sato in the first of the yellow Jordans. Behind him is his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. Fisichella goes down the inside. Oh, but it's not worked, and the salver's gone off. That's Felipe Massa.
And Bernoldi coming through the tunnel had the car absolutely sideways, right at the apex of the fastest part of the corner in the tunnel. A real battle going on. That's down in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th place.
Well, Frenzen's going very quickly now on his Bridgestone tyres and the Arrows. He's going much faster now that he's got past the Toyota of Mika Salo, and it looked like Toyota are getting ready for Salo to make a pit stop. The two Jordans on Bridgestones as well, and they are going very quickly. Frenzen,
fastest lap of the race, you're right. Heinz, Harold, Frenzen and the Arrows suddenly got in clear of the Toyota. 1 minute 20.664, and that is, well, 0.5, 0.4 of a second quicker than the 4 lead cars we've been following pretty much this race.
Watch behind as well, because Felipe Massa in 12th was under pressure there from Enrique Bernoldi. There we are, Massa twitching around a little bit. And look at Takuma Sato. Sato down the inside. Oh, he gets it back together. Great move from the Japanese driver.
But good thinking from Mika Salo. He knew when to say, OK, I've been passed. I'm not going to challenge you. He could have closed the door. That would have been 2 more cars out of this race. So now Giancarlo Fisichella, he's going to use all the advantages he's got with Honda power and with those Bridgestone tyres to try and follow through. Otherwise, he will lose contact with Sato.
Well, Salo must have a problem.
Salo's got a problem, yes.
He must have a problem. He's just moving out of the way here effectively and letting people through. Now we're looking at a replay. This was Sato coming down the inside. Salo saw him coming, didn't turn in, and Takuma gathered it all together. Good car control and managed to sneak ahead. And now look, Salo has Felipe Massa and Enrique Bernoldi desperately trying to find a way past as well.
Well, something's going wrong for Mika Salo very rapidly. He's just losing place after place. Felipe Massa now backing up. Bernoldi behind him. Yes, Mika Salo's into the pits, and the Toyota team, what looked like a great opportunity. 1 car out in the barriers at Saint-Deveau. Mika Salo dives into the pit lane, and we don't know whether that's a mechanical problem or whether it's something they had anticipated. A very early stop, and I think
not looking too good for 100th Grand Prix for Mika Salo. The Finn, very experienced. They're changing the tyres, refueling the car. This is an early pit stop though, lap number 21. You wouldn't normally expect them to be coming in quite this early in the race.
He may well have clipped something somewhere on the track. We haven't been watching this battle only in the last couple of laps, so maybe there was something which was down to the driver, caused him to lose pace, but he's been reserviced, new set of wheels and tyres back on, and out he'll go. Now he has to drive hard all the way for the remaining 57 laps of this Grand Prix, because here in Monte Carlo you never give up, because you can always find yourself in a position to pick up maybe a 6th place or even a 5th place.
22 laps completed now at Monaco, and it's still the McLaren Mercedes of David Coulthard that leads the race from the Williams BMW of Montoya, the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, the Williams of Ralf Schumacher, the Renault of Jarno Trulli up there in the points, and Kimi Raikkonen in 6th place in the other McLaren.
And Felipe Massa again getting his Cyber all sideways through the swimming pool, but further down the field other battles are going in. Mark Webber in the Minardi. Now we never thought Mark Webber and Olivier Panis in the BAR would battle, but they are having a mighty battle.
Look at the replay here. This was Massa versus Bernoldi. Bernoldi had a little look to get in the inside going into the tunnel, but that's really not even a possible overtaking manoeuvre.
The two Brazilians battling away, and Bernoldi now getting a little bit of the same medicine he dished out last year to David Coulthard, unable to find a way past Felipe Massa in the Sauber.
The Jordan crew taking their time. They've got both cars still running in this race, and they're both in the top 10 now, so that's encouraging. But Sato ahead of Fisichella is a bit of a surprise. You almost wonder, John, will Jordan get on the radio and say, Takuma, move out of the way? Your experienced teammate, a bit of a master of Monaco himself, might be able to go and do something a little more than this.
I would imagine that they should be doing it. I don't know why they're not.
Sato's
hit the barrier.
He's hit the wall in the tunnel right in front of his teammate, and Takuma Sato, a huge accident at the fastest parts of the track. He slides down into the tyre barrier at the chicane, and one of the Jordans is out. It could so easily have been both, and let's hope that he's okay. He was in a huge accident last time out in Austria.
That was like Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan last year, same part of the circuit, lost it right in the apex of the corner, slammed into the barrier on the outside of the tunnel, and then just slid all the way down the course. Left side of the car heavily damaged, and we may have a safety car. It is on standby. There we see the Mercedes-Benz safety car. It may be deployed. We've got a yellow dot which indicates yellow flags, and that orange dot indicates there is this hit. Big hit. Takuma Sato And I mean, this young man, massive accident in Austria 2 weeks ago, an accident here last weekend in an historic festival, now out of the race with an accident.
Well, great disappointment for the Jordan fans and for Takuma Sato. Let's hope he's okay. It really was a big rattle against the barriers. Look at look at that. You see the shot, the sparks fly up. He just sideswiped the wall, and Fisichella right behind him had to get onto the brakes and try and avoid him.
Ben, just watching it, I mean, he was certainly very wide at the point where he should have been much closer to the left of our screen, because now the car just slides down the track, no way of bringing it to a halt. Fisichella went one way, the other way to get out of the way, and still Takuma Sato's Jordan just slides down harmlessly, comes to a stop, and well, another big shake-up for the young Japanese driver after having a massive accident. That one in Austria, of course, was nothing to do with him. He was just simply a passenger when Nick Heidfeldt's car just dunk slammed poor Takuma Sato out of the race.
Technical boss of the Jordan team, Gary Anderson, obviously looking concerned, and bits of carbon fibre all over the place there. They're offline on the exit of the tunnel, and it looks as though the safety car's been stood down now because, yes, indeed, there we are, confirmation, but there's still, of course, yellow flags in that area of the track. So no overtaking at that part of the track, but the rest of the track is green.
There you can see that shot in the tunnel. How Sato got to there. Now, clearly he was aware of what Fisichella was doing behind, whether the team had said give him room to go by, whether he was trying to do that, we don't know. Hopefully we'll get to find out that news a little bit later in this Grand Prix, but a scary moment. And also for the other teams out there, because there will be shards of carbon fibre all the way down, even though it's on the off line. Some of those bits can be flicked and put onto the racing line, and they are so sharp. Tire damage is something that now people must be keeping an eye out for.
Well, it looks as though Takuma able to get himself out of the car this time, and that's great news after being somewhat sore still from the shunt in Austria, and their relief for Gary Anderson and the rest of the crew that their man is out of the car.
But there's again another battle. This is Felipe Massa and Bernoldi, the two Brazilians, still battling away. But for Jordan, they only came here with 3 cars because Sato's car was too heavily damaged to have it repaired in time. Now the Jordan team are under more pressure because they've got to get these cars back to their base at Silverstone in England, get them rebuilt, get a third spare car built up to go out to Canada, and those cars will be being sent from the UK or around Europe by next Sunday. So less than a week for the team to get the car back rebuilt. Big work schedule for Jordan.
So we're watching the battle here between Felipe Massa and Enrique Bernoldi. 25 laps have been completed here at Monaco. So far, it's David Coulthard that's dominated from the start. A brilliant getaway, and he stayed in front of Montoya, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher, Jarno Trulli in 5th, and Kimi Räikkönen in 6th. But it's still early days in this race.
Well, just completing 1/3 distance, 26 laps of 78, so pit's looking ready as the Sauber, or not the Sauber, the Minardi team have got engineers. Is this for Mark Webber or for Alex Young? Young running at 19th, Mark Webber doing a great job in 14th place, still hounding Olivier Panis all the way.
Well, there you could see Montoya again, pretty close. Look at Bernoldi, we're on board with Enriquez again. He's trying to challenge Felipe Massa, but Massa just holds the middle line into the chicane, and that denies Bernoldi the chance to find a way through.
And Bernoldi very wisely backed off because the position that Massa's car had on the racetrack did not provide sufficient room or margin for error. But you can see the Sauber leaping all over the place. A hard drive this afternoon for Felipe Massa, and all that pressure behind from Enrique Bernoldi.
Great to watch though, isn't it? Watch that Sauber, it's sliding around there again. Look, the back end steps out, he corrects it, and you watch on board with Bernoldi, everything looks very controlled and easy. He just drives through the corner without the same sort of grip problems.
Here he goes, can he get alongside, can he get along? No, but so late. Massa is very late in the brakes. Bernoldi very wisely lets him go. Again, you can see now he gets a good run. Now there's a block. Now if he does that more than once, Massa will be brought in. That is, well, as we mentioned earlier, David Coulthard was in this situation last year behind Bernoldi, but we didn't see that blatant block that Felipe Massa did this time up the hill to Enrique Bernoldi. Left with the job of trying to get alongside, and Massa is being very aggressive in defending his position.
And look how it's allowing everyone else to close back up. Heidfeldt is behind Bernoldi in the other Sauber. Then it's Olivier Panis, the Frenchman. Behind him is Mark Webber, the Australian, in the Minardi. A car that's not a particularly fancied runner, but he's doing well at the moment. Webber running in 14th position. And as I say, now on the tail of this battle, look at this, here comes Bernaldi, he's got alongside, and surely this is the opportunity to get past. He does it, Felipe Massa, oh, and he's going to run into him. He's pushed him down the escape road. He's run into the back of Bernaldi, pushed him down the escape road, and Bernaldi will be fuming with that. What a shame, the move was made, and Massa braked too late.
Yes, well, Felipe Massa just could not give up. His rear tyres, the inside shoulder of the rear tyres on that side are very, very heavily worn. That may be the problem that we have seen from the Brazilian driver, not being able to get grip traction in any of the corners. But that was just fundamentally just being too greedy. He was beaten into the corner. He refused to give up. And what is important in a good driver is to know when not to give up, but more importantly, when to give up. There we see it. Just pushes the back of the arrows into the corner. Poor Bernaldi had no choice. He just went straight on. And, well, Felipe Massa is making himself not particularly popular here this weekend. A lot of complaints during qualifying from many drivers that he was not using his mirrors, not being considerate. This time, well beaten, but just well, somebody needs to talk to the young Brazilian, Felipe Massa, and say, cool it.
So a great shame for Enrique Bernaldi, who'd been battling for that position. What it does mean now is that Giancarlo Fisichella has moved up into 9th position, and it will bring Heidfeld now up into 10th position. So Heidfeld will have gained from his teammate's mistake there. Nick Heidfeld in the second Sauber. Heidfeld now 10th, Panis is now 11th.
David Coulthard gets through cleanly. Felipe Massa, well aware of what's happening now. He's got to let Pablo Montoya and Michael Schumacher through with the same generosity. But just one wonders, Ben, was there any damage to the rear of Bernaldi's arrows? He was pushed some way, and rear suspensions, or suspensions on a Grand Prix car, are designed to work in certain areas, certain planes. They're not designed to be pushed from the rear by another Grand Prix car.
Montoya just locking, sorry John, but Montoya just locking up. I wondered if he was going to do the same, but he got through the corner. Felipe Massa does come in.
And you could see a lot of tyre wear on the front, but I noticed it on the rear in particular. Even those tyres he's putting on, quite heavily worn, so Felipe Massa goes back out, having caused an incident with Enrique Bernaldi. Bernaldi's dropped down to 17th place, Felipe Massa down to 18th place, so disappointment for both the Brazilians.
So now it looks as though, well, that's interesting, the incident involving car number 8, Felipe Massa, is under investigation by the stewards.
And I suspect he will be made to drive through penalty at worst. He could get a stop-go penalty as well, and that was clearly just a poor piece of driving on the part of Felipe Massa. Michael Schumacher again so close to the rear of Pablo Montoya in this battle for 2nd place.
Yes, and Montoya's dropped away from Coulthard. Coulthard's got a slightly bigger lead than we've seen for a number of laps, so Coulthard has that chance, bit of breathing space currently. There again, you look at the top 3, look at Coulthard's advantage. He's definitely stretched out more of a lead. Montoya and Schumacher still very close, and Ralf Schumacher also not far behind in 4th.
Well, the last 2 laps they've been pretty evenly matched, but of course a driver may choose just to again drop back. There's no point running very, very close to the car ahead of you. It doesn't help your car, and it makes your job of driving that little bit more difficult.
Through Sandoval safely. We've just seen Mark Webber into the pit, so the Minardi driver has made his pit stop. He was running in 13th position, now of course drops back down the order. They will have put a full tank of fuel on board, and he'll have some work to do in the latter part of the race. Taking a look at the replay, Coulthard, this was Montoya.
Oh, a wisp of smoke, Ben, a wisp. Now, was that bodywork contacting to the tyre, or was that a mechanical problem that David Coulthard is just beginning to experience? That little wisp, sometimes that looked, I don't know, tyre smoke and engine smoke.
Yeah, there again, John. You just saw it, smoke coming as he went into the tunnel that time. Definitely saw some blue smoke. Take another look
again.
There.
Yes, so David Coulthard beginning to experience some kind of problem. We don't know whether it's engine related. There again on the exit coming out of that chicane. Watch right here turning into Tabak. Whether it's when he comes off the throttle, there's a little wisp coming out.
Well, that is not promising at all for David Coulthard. McLaren do not have a good reliability record this year, not at all, not up to their usual standards. Kimi Raikkonen in particular has not finished a race since the opening Grand Prix of the season, and it's been all sorts of mechanical failures that have let him down. Coulthard has had a slightly better run than that, but the McLaren crew watching the pictures very carefully, still lapping fast however, so it doesn't seem to be slowing him down at this point.
Well, David Coulthard, oh, again, you see, I don't know whether it's on a change of gear or whether it's maybe just lifts off the throttle slightly to breathe the engine, but it is becoming more apparent by the corner, not just simply once on a lap.
So there the battle still, the top four. Coulthard maintaining the edge that he has, some 2 seconds over Montoya. 31 laps have been completed, and a very slow Alex Young in the
crabbing.
tunnel.
He's got a right rear. Is it a puncture or he damaged the car against? Car appeared to be crabbing as he tried to hug the barrier all the way around the inside of the tunnel, trying vainly to keep out of the way. And then again, David Coulthard comes down. Young just drives across the chicane, doing the right thing. He's going to be going into the pits. There again, left bank of that V10 Mercedes-Benz engine. That is not bodywork, in my opinion. That is mechanical. There's the look on technical director Adrian Newey's face. He's seeing the same pictures we are. There's a problem for Coulthard.
Well, let's hope that it's a minor problem, that it's just a view of some smoke that isn't going to affect performance, but it's not good news. We're not even at half distance on this track. And look, another view from the onboard camera. You can really see that smoke puffing away.
And I don't think this car is going to be capable of going very much further. There's oil being burnt. It's getting through the system, up into the combustion chamber. More and more and more changing gear now. I mean, another couple of laps, I think David Coulthard is going to feel something wrong for him. I don't believe that he's capable of going an awful lot further in this race before something fairly serious occurs. And the lead that David Coulthard's enjoyed, the dominance of this afternoon's Grand Prix, was going to be spoilt by a mechanical problem.
Down the hill, out of the Grand Hotel, a hairpin, and you can see behind him still Montoya and Schumacher a little bit closer perhaps.
Well, no, I'm not sure. I think they might actually be just holding station because they can see this as well. Now this car's going to blow up. They don't want to have their car, their visor covered in oil, water, whatever it may be, particularly at a critical part of the circuit. So they're letting David, I think, just gradually ease away so as they've got enough warning, enough time to adjust or adapt if there is a major problem.
And there is Mario Ilian, nearest the camera, boss of Ilmor, the man responsible for the engines in association with Mercedes, a man who's had so much success in both Formula One and in the United States. But looking at these pictures, he must be very, very worried indeed, as the smoke seems to be worse. And with that very finite amount of oil on board a Formula One car at the start of a race, well, a lot of it seems to be burning away. There won't be much left at this rate.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya was 1.5 seconds behind David Coulthard as they came across start-finish line there. You can see it's probably about 35-40 metres, so they've got to be careful. They don't want to overrun David Coulthard. Blue flag, of course, and that's a light on the dashboard of Mika Salo's. So he pulls over to the right, lets the first three. Now he'll go round the corner, and then Ralf Schumacher will also slip by without any difficulty. But Montoya must be careful not to get too close. He suspects, and I'm sure that the Williams team are telling him to be aware of a potential problem for Coulthard. And if that engine goes big time, there will be oil, water going straight onto the visor and on the wheels and tyres of Montoya and Michael Schumacher's cars.
So, cause for concern for David Coulthard as the smoke puffs away. His teammate Kimi Raikkonen still in the race, remember, Raikkonen running in 6th position. Let's quickly update you. It's Coulthard, Montoya, Schumacher, then Ralf Schumacher 4th, Trulli in 5th. Raikkonen is 6th, ahead of Barrichello, Frentzen, Fisichella now 9th, ahead of Nick Heidfeld in 10th. Then it's Panis, De La Rosa in 12th, ahead of Irvine, Jensen Button, Enrique Bernaldi, Mika Salo, who's running down in 16th place, and then Mark Webber, who's made a pit stop, is 17th. Felipe Massa has also just been into the pits. It's the end of lap number 34, and we've still got some 44 laps to go.
And the reason for Felipe Massa being in the pits for a second time this afternoon was he came in and had a stop-go penalty, and that was the result of that incident with Enrique Bernaldi when he ran into the back of him into Sandovo. In the meantime, it's Michael Schumacher once again who's picking up the pace and pushing Juan Pablo Montoya less than 0.3 of a second, almost impossible to time only electronically. And you get the gap between the Williams and the Ferrari in this battle behind David Coulthard, race leader.
The Mercedes men, Jürgen Hubbard and Norbert Taub, looking very, very concerned, of course, but so far David is still going, and there we can see his lead actually has opened up, if anything, over Montoya in 2nd position.
Well, it seems it's ebbing and flowing all around the track. Now that oil smoke appears to be dissipating. Either that's because it's cured itself, which is unlikely, or oil is getting very low indeed, which is probably more likely. And what a huge disappointment this would be for David Coulthard, for the McLaren team. Here's the other battle, Barrichello and Kimi Raikkonen. They're battling away for 6th place. Last championship point, of course, is 6th place.
Yes, and just ahead of them, there's Jarno Trulli, the Italian, in the Renault. Right there, the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen, the new Finnish boy wonder, if you like, this year. 2nd season of Grand Prix racing, 1st season with McLaren Mercedes. Has not finished a race since the 1st race of the year in Australia, but driving well here this afternoon, holding on to 6th, despite lots of pressure from the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello.
Kimi Raikkonen and Barrichello battling into Saint-Devo. In the meantime, race leader David Coulthard is actually, with all the problems we think he has got, has set the fastest race lap, the first man to get into the 1 minute 19 second bracket with a 1:19.743, and the gap to Montoya is up to 2.4 seconds.
So it doesn't seem to be slowing Coulthard down at all at the moment, and they're into some more back markers. Enrique Bernoldi is the car's moved out of the way there of David Coulthard already. Pat Fry talking to Ron Dennis about this situation, I'm no doubt, and hoping that they can sort it out. Bernoldi gets out of the way there of 2nd and 3rd place runners. Montoya and Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher will be the next one to squeeze past.
Well, we're trying to think what David Coulthard's problems may be, and of course these cars carry supplementary oil tanks, and maybe there's been a small malfunction and it's overfilling the tank, and that could be the reason why we saw those puffs of oil smoke coming from the back of Coulthard's McLaren. It seems to have stopped. The situation seems to have cured itself, and David Coulthard now 2.5 seconds ahead of Montoya in 2nd place.
Good to see Takuma Sato back at the Jordan pit. Perfectly okay by the looks of things, and perhaps explaining to his team what caused the accident when he sideswiped the tunnel there. A big accident, the fastest section of the circuit. Thankfully Takuma is okay and lives to fight another day. He'll have to look forward to the next Grand Prix in Canada before he can challenge again. His teammate, meanwhile, Fisichella, running in 9th place as we ride on board with Michael Schumacher. So they come through the chicane. Some more traffic to be dealing with as you see David Coulthard coming through there. Coulthard's already found a way past Jenson Button, and now it'll be Eddie Irvine, the next one to be lapped. Irvine currently running in 13th position.
And looking just at Juan Pablo Montoya and Michael Schumacher, we're coming close to half distance. So for those that are planning to stop early, I mean, Michael Schumacher and Ferrari could take the option to go out of sync and get in and try and make a very quick pit stop. It all depends where he would blend back into the field, and with cars now spread equidistant around the racetrack, it's very difficult for the teams to determine the right time, other than that they might have done prior to this race beginning, where to go in and make your one and only stop of the afternoon.
Renault are preparing for a stop now. Is it for this man, Jarno Trulli, currently running in 5th position? No, he stays out there for the moment. It might be for Jenson Button, running all the way down in 14th place. Trulli has not finished in the points at all so far this season, and he's hoping to get that sorted out. He's still being chased by Kimi Raikkonen and Rubens Barrichello. There is Raikkonen, currently running in 6th. Barrichello is 7th.
But Heinz-Harald Frentzen, running all on his own in 8th place, is running quicker than the cars ahead of him, because Kimi Raikkonen basically is slowing down Barrichello. In the meantime, Heinz-Harald Frentzen running on his own, running almost a second a lap faster than the Ferrari and the McLaren Mercedes-Benz.
Schumacher really leaning on Montoya that time down towards the chicane. Again, Montoya didn't give him space, but Schumacher hounding him, looking for a little slip up from the Colombian, enough to allow him through. But Montoya, who made a mistake on the 3rd lap of the Grand Prix last year, put it into the barrier, determined not to do the same again. And this is crucial psychological battle between these two as they come up to lap Eddie Irvine.
Well, Eddie Irvine will pull over and get out of the way. There he does, goes to the left of track, leaves the racing line free for Montoya and Michael Schumacher, and Ralf Schumacher will probably slip in behind brother Michael. All three get through cleanly. Well, in fact, Eddie Irvine didn't let Ralf, wasn't quite clear.
So up the hill once again into Casino Square, and it looks as though Coulthard's car working brilliantly well at this stage. Into the pits and back out again for Jenson Button. Button was running a long way down the order. Remember, he made that drive-through penalty earlier for jumping the start. He'd already at the back. Montoya makes a little mistake down there at the hairpin, and he does seem to be struggling for grip, more so now than he was in the early stages of this race. He cannot seem to run at the same pace now as Coulthard. He's 4 seconds behind.
Yes, a massive leap of 1.5 seconds. Sounds a large, but 1.5 seconds in the last couple of laps, and Montoya now really beginning to struggle. David Coulthard sprinting way ahead. Montoya clearly holding up Michael Schumacher. And news from the pit lane, Ben, is that McLaren, through the use of telemetry, we've now got pit lane to car telemetry. They think they've made some adjustments that may well have cured that problem that we all could see David Coulthard had. That was smoke coming out of the right-hand bank of that engine.
Well, new rules for Formula One this year, allowing the teams to make changes using radio signals from pits to the car, and maybe those changes, maybe that new rule change has allowed McLaren to breathe a sigh of relief here. We're still in the early stage. Well, we're at the half-distance mark now, in fact, in the Monaco Grand Prix, and so far so good for McLaren Mercedes, the most successful team here at Monaco, having taken 11 victories. Coulthard is up front. Through Casino Square now then, and Montoya manages to get past Felipe Massa cleanly without a problem. Michael Schumacher also nips through, and we wait for Ralf Schumacher. I'm sure he won't be slowed down too much. Schumacher, Michael that is, in the Ferrari was pressurizing a moment ago to Montoya, but the gap has just opened up a length or so. It was out of the tunnel last time that he got very close indeed.
But Montoya back now up to race speed in the 1:20 20s. Not still as quick as David Coulthard, the gap 4.6 seconds, but away from those laps when he was running in the middle 1:21 21s. And of course frustration now setting in for Michael Schumacher in the knowledge that David Coulthard, running in clear air, is able to run at his own pace and is pulling away from this battle for second place.
There, the super slow motion action, watching the tyres as they shimmy a little bit over the curbs. You can see the little bits of rubber at the side as well, where the tyre... Oh, we've got an accident, and that's Schumacher, isn't it? Or it's Barrichello. It's Barrichello, I'm afraid, who's hit the back of Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen's in trouble as well. Raikkonen and Barrichello in the battle for sixth, and it looks as though contact has put them both out.
Well, Rubens come down very close behind the back of Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen, of course, defending into the chicane. Now noseless, wingless. Let's watch again. Raikkonen always on the racing line. Barrichello just too late, no way to slow down. And, well, gets into the back of the Raikkonen's Mercedes fairly heavily, gets the nose of his Ferrari up in the air. Let's look at the forward view of the situation. This one's down to Rubens. He made an error, a driving error. Raikkonen is the victim, so both drivers penalised for a great battle that was taking place for the sixth place.
Well, that is disappointment for the Brazilian after giving way in Austria. Now a mistake, a driving mistake on his behalf, and he's out. And both cars are in the pits now. Can they get them both out again? Are they sufficiently okay? They're having a good look. Look at that rear wing, John. It's moving a lot.
I think that wing, I think they've got to take the wing off and change it, put a new total assembly on. That'll take some considerable time. Barrichello gets out of the pit lane, and in the meantime we heard from Takuma Sato, the young Japanese driver who crashed in the tunnel. He said, basically what I was trying to do was get out of the way of my teammate, but I just made an error too far to the left and hit the wall very heavily, and he apologises to the team, to his mechanics, to everybody. But there's disappointment. Now will Barrichello be penalised for that driving error? We saw Felipe Massa being penalised for running into the back of Bernoldi here into Saint-Devoux. Now will Rubens Barrichello also be penalised by having to come back in and take a 10-second stop-go penalty?
It's the sixth non-finish in 7 Grand Prix if Kimi Raikkonen doesn't get back out, although I think he's got back in the car again. So they will get him back out. That's good news. They will send him back out, so let's not add to his non-finish statistics just yet. Let's hope they do get the car running.
Then the gap between Coulthard and Montoya was 4 seconds. Now it's down to less than 3. It's 2.9 as they came across the line. So Montoya back up to speed. Coulthard got delayed. Now that may have been simply just due to the traffic around the track. We have to keep an eye over the next couple of laps, because as the second and third place competitors come out of the tunnel, or through the tunnel, and be out of it just in a moment, we can look forward and see how much traffic there is ahead of them, and it'll be a battle with Pines, Heidfeld and De La Rosa.
Yes, incident involving car number 2 under investigation. So indeed, John, they are looking at the crash there for Rubens Barrichello, and he may indeed pick up another penalty. Another penalty, adding to the fact that he's had to make a long pit stop for a nose cone change. Well, we'll watch that with interest as we look back from Montoya's car. They're still working on the Kimi Raikkonen machine, taking the rear wing off, and now hopefully replacing it with a new unit. Meanwhile, there are battles going on throughout the field here. That's the battle for second you're watching at the moment, but behind them, Ralf Schumacher runs 4th, Trulli is 5th. Frentzen now in
Michael
6th.
Schumacher got very wide coming out of Saint-Devoux. He really had to check the car, get out of the throttle. He just almost slipped all the way up the barrier on the exit. So just, you've always got to keep your wits about you.
So easy to make a mistake. They're coming up behind Nick Heidfeld now. Heidfeld is 9th, and they're about to lap him. Frentzen is currently in 6th place. A good drive for the Arrows man. Fisichella is 7th. Barrichello has rejoined in 8th place after the incident with this man, Kimi Räikkönen. So then it's Heidfeld, Panis 10th, De La Rosa in 11th, Irvine in 12th, and Mika Salo 13th, ahead of Mark Webber. And still we've only seen 3 actual retirements from this race: Alex Young, Takuma Sato, and Alan McNish.
And that was Montoya. Montoya went through the chicane. He didn't go around the chicane. He drove through that. So Montoya made an error under braking into the chicane. Now, whether that will be deemed to be an advantage or not. So he didn't make up any places. He didn't really gain any time as we watch back. This is Irvine. Oh, Eddie Irvine losing it, tank slapping it all the way down.
And that was Mika Salo taking advantage. Now, was there contact here, John? No.
No contact, just Eddie. It looks like the traction control suddenly it was non-existent.
Oh, and this is still close between the two battling for 2nd place. Montoya just fending off Michael Schumacher as Rubens Barrichello makes his way through the pits and has had a stop-and-go penalty.
Yes, that means coming into the pits, stopping for 10 seconds, standing there then. And this is down to the individual teams. They have to actually carry out this exercise. And then when the 10 seconds is up, the driver can go back out into the field. Barrichello had been very quick, immediately going back out after his contact with Kimi Räikkönen, but of course, once again coming back in and will have lost about 30 seconds for in and out, plus 10 seconds, so a total of 40 seconds for Barrichello for that rash move. There's Montoya misjudging the braking. There he went straight across the chicane. Whether that will be deemed an unfair advantage, I have to say, doesn't look like it to me.
No, and he almost hit the barrier under the braking there. The car was very unstable indeed, but he saved it, and he stays in front of Michael Schumacher. Now, we've just seen Jarno Trulli come into the pit, so the Renault driver drops down the order somewhat. He's made a stop. He was running in 5th place. That promotes Heinz-Harald Frentzen up into 5th, and
Ferrari
6th.
are ready for Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher is going to be in. Oh my goodness, it's gone wrong for Rubens Barrichello. He's been done for speeding in the pit lane, but this is Michael Schumacher's one and only stop for the day. They decided bring him in now. It's on lap, he came in lap 44.
Now,
cleaning out all the airboxes.
Tyre change, and off goes Michael Schumacher once again. Ross Brawn speaking to him on the radio.
Indeed, and this is the major play of the race. If Ferrari are going to take victory, or at least get up onto 2nd place on the podium, it's going to start now. Michael Schumacher is going to rejoin the track, and really there's not too much traffic ahead of him, so he's going to be able to get in 2 or 3 really quick laps. One of the Arrows just comes by, and Michael just manages to get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen, of course, running in 5th place. Michael Schumacher rejoins in 4th.
So that's great stuff for Michael Schumacher to get out in front of Frentzen. That could be absolutely crucial. Now, if he can string a series of fast laps together, it may well be that he can move up into at least 2nd past Montoya, but it looks like Coulthard could be coming into the pit soon.
It is. David Coulthard is going to come in. This is going to be in lap 45. So we hope that McLaren are ready for him. So we'll wait and see what this team do. So David Coulthard cuts. No, he doesn't. He goes on one more lap. We saw the McLaren team preparing. It's for Kimi Räikkönen back in again. Yeah, it's Räikkönen who's come back in. So obviously, even though repairs have been made, the car is not right. And he's saying, no, don't take the steering wheel off. I think maybe we can still get back out there. Maybe it's only a minor problem. But I think that McLaren want to get this car moved out of the way as quickly as possible, because we are going to come into the window that David Coulthard and his team will be looking to make that pit stop. There we see Montoya now in 2nd place, Ralph Schumacher in 3rd. Michael will be pushing. He's just gone fastest in that 2nd sector of the lap. New tyres, fuel on board. A chat to Ross Brawn as he went out of the pit lane. As Rubens Barrichello once again visits the pits. I think it's the 3rd time we've seen the Brazilian this afternoon into the pits. Yes, he picked up the penalty for speeding in the pit lane last time around, so he's had to drive through it again on the speed limit of 60 kilometres an hour, just over 40 miles per hour, which he exceeded last time. So Michael Schumacher, this is his opportunity now. The laps that he's putting together now could be the difference between him matching Ayrton Senna's 6 victories here at Monaco, because if he can put in enough quick laps, he could move ahead not only of Montoya, but of Coulthard as well, quite possibly, because he wasn't that far behind the McLaren Mercedes driver. But these two are going deeper into the race, so they might need to stop for a little less long when it comes to their turn. But Ralph Schumacher quicker at this moment than Juan Pablo Montoya. As we look back into the pit lane and see which teams are beginning to prepare there. We look at the Williams team running second and third, virtually nose to tail, but Ralph Schumacher, the quicker of the two Williams drivers at this moment.
Little puff of smoke. And Montoya's in trouble. I saw a little puff of smoke as he came along across the line, and then Montoya's in trouble, and it's Ralph Schumacher who's moved ahead, puts him into second. Patrick Head discussing things with the team, and what can you believe?
I just wonder, is this a problem, or did Montoya lift off to let Ralph Schumacher go through? Because suddenly the car, and again a problem. You can see just coming into the mirror boat, suddenly the car just turned sharp left when it should have been going right. Let's take a look. This is the replay, John, as he came down past the start-finish line. Now, was there a puff of smoke? I thought I saw a little haze. There was a blue haze, but that problem occurred into the mirror boat corner. We just cut away from that to see the replay of that initial incident. There is Montoya going slowly, and he's in trouble and out of the race. Listen to that, it sounds horrible. Down the hill. And I tell you what, we've had great reliability from the BMW engine this year, but not this time. Stay offline. He's got to get offline. If that engine is about to erupt and put oil down, water down on the racetrack, we have seen what happened to Eddie Irvine on Thursday. And I tell you what, we've had great reliability from the BMW engine this year, but not this time. Stay offline. He's got to get offline. If that engine is about to erupt and put oil down, water down on the racetrack, we have seen what happened to Eddie Irvine on Thursday in practice when he got caught on the oil from Bernoldi's engine. So Juan Pablo Montoya, just pull it off, take that car out of the race, Juan Pablo. Yeah, and cars coming around to pass him, and that's a nasty situation for the others. I think that's pretty much the first BMW we've seen let go. Ralph did at the end of the Barcelona, the Spanish Grand Prix, but that was right on the last lap. Montoya's had reliability all year long, but it's gone wrong for him here in Monaco when he had a great chance. And there we see once again as he comes out of the tunnel, you can almost hear it, let alone see it. So Michael Schumacher up to third place, having made his one stop. He is some 31 seconds behind David Coulthard. Coulthard yet to make his pit stop. So should Coulthard decide to come in at this point, he has got 31.8 seconds to get himself refueled, retired, and back out before Michael Schumacher will come past the pit lane exit. So it's down to this man, David Coulthard now. He's not going to have any help from Montoya. Ralph Schumacher still running competitively, but there's quite a gap between David Coulthard and there, Ralph Schumacher. You can see a huge distance, and I'm sure that Michael will be well ahead of him after Ralph has made his pit stop. It's all the question of how quickly Coulthard can go and how short a stop he can make. If he's going very deep into this race, it will be a short stop, and hopefully he might be able to still challenge Michael Schumacher when he comes back out. Waved yellow flags just on at the Rascasse. That was to get Montoya's car pushed to safety. Ralph Schumacher lost a momentary second or two because of that, but some 15.7 seconds was 14.1 to this man, David Coulthard, who's now comfortably in the lead and has got a lot more options, but his concern will be the gap, not to Ralph Schumacher, but the gap to Michael Schumacher, who is now 31.8 seconds behind. Coulthard must push in these laps now before he makes his stop. Of course, the deeper he goes into the race, the less fuel he will have to take on board, the less time he will stand in the pits, and therefore that will assist him in that quest to take victory here this year. He's still lapping faster than Michael Schumacher at this point, John, and that's the key thing. He's still managing to go quicker than the Ferrari. And you know, last year Coulthard was the last to make a pit stop. It was as far as lap number 65 out of 78. Now he was going not as quite as quick as he has been this time because he got held up a lot. He had to start from the back of the grid, but it showed you what McLaren's tactics were. It took him some 26 seconds. He lost about 26 seconds on his stop. At the moment he's 32 seconds ahead of Michael. If he can sustain this pace, he should come out back in front. On board with Mika Salo, having an attack of Panis here, trying to go past the Frenchman. The Frenchman forced to go across the chicane. Again, I think that's a case of force majeure, but it depends on, and there Montoya's car, just checking that. I mean, they didn't need to do that. They just dumped all that extinguishing powder on the car, and I'm sure that the BMW and them, that's just unnecessary, I think. So looking back over the rear wing of Mika Salo, and that now he is past Panis. So we don't quite know if Panis just backed off a bit there. Well, I think that maybe Panis felt that he was overtaken fairly and squarely, and maybe even the team have instructed him to let Mika Salo go. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen, after 2 stops, still in 6th place, but 1 lap down. There we sit again. Really nowhere for Salo to go. He couldn't get around. It would almost mean coming to a standstill, then picking up. So he did the right thing and let Mika Salo go. Now in 7th place, some 29 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen in that final points position, number 6.
The positions at the end of 49 laps. Coulthard, the leader, from Ralf Schumacher, and Ralf looks to be coming in this time around. Michael Schumacher is still 3rd, Fisichella 4th, Trulli 5th, and Frentzen 6th.
But Michael Schumacher, a new lap record, 1:19.002, and that gap is going to close down very quickly. David Coulthard and McLaren have got to be careful. They can't allow him to stay out too long, otherwise his advantage will be lost when he does come in.
Ralf Schumacher, the tyres looking very worn, so it's time for him to come into the pits now and make his sole stop. It's lap number 50, 28 laps to go, and this should be a clean stop. Hopefully all 4 tyres are changed. The fuel goes on board at a rate of nearly 3 gallons per second, and he looks as though he's saying this car is all over the place.
Yeah, you could see his hand movements. He was looking for somebody to get their attention, to tell him his problems, but he's got a radio. He can talk to the team, but maybe he wanted a change, a mechanical change to the car.
Well, it looks as though McLaren now are getting ready to get David Coulthard reserviced here. Look at this. Ralf Schumacher joining right back in the front of that battle with Olivier Panis and Felipe Massa.
And the team did a very good job in calculating just where he would blend back into the field. If he had got caught in that battle, then it would have been curtains. But the real battle really is not between Ralf Schumacher. It's Michael Schumacher taking 1.6 seconds out of David Coulthard's lap. That was lap 50. They've got to bring Coulthard in. The team are ready for him. Is he going to dive in? Yes, Coulthard's into the pits. And watch what he do. Tyres will go on board. Fuel load should be fairly short. We saw 8.5 seconds from Michael Schumacher. They will want to be out in less. Schumacher comes round Tabak.
So this is the crucial battle. This could be the decisive moment of the race. It's a quick fuel stop, 6.9 seconds. Great stop from the McLaren crew. Is it enough? It should be. 40 miles an hour is all he's allowed to do down this pit lane, but he's well ahead. He's well in front of Michael Schumacher, surely. Schumacher coming through, Raskas are out now, but it's okay. Coulthard gets out in front, and McLaren Mercedes have done the job. They've got him out in front of Ferrari. Now he's got to stay there for the remaining 27 laps.
And there you can see Schumacher is, 3 seconds behind as he looks and he glares at the back of that McLaren. He's been glaring at the back of Montoya's Williams all race. Now he's got a moment of breath. Now it's going to be David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher 18.652, another new lap record. Michael Schumacher is just absolutely stunning now that he's got clear air.
So the battle rejoined. These two have both made their only pit stops in this race. And we now look back from David Coulthard's car at the 4 times world champion. Now Coulthard has to survive the next 27 laps. It seems as though McLaren sorted out the problem with the smoke earlier on, but surely reliability will be a concern as he sees the man who's already taken 5 wins around this track right behind him.
But this is a real battle for the lead. In previous races, Michael, with this new Ferrari, has just been pretty much dominant. In spite of being waved the victory in Austria, this car never really challenged. But it's all about qualifying. If you can't get on the front row of the grid, you really inhibit your opportunities to win a race. But now, Michael Schumacher, second for the first time this afternoon. Now the pit stops have worked their way through, putting pressure on David Coulthard. Coulthard on fresh tyres, new fuel on board. It is the battle between Coulthard and Schumacher, a battle between Michelin and Bridgestone, Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari.
Yes, Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari, John, who have shared the last 5 victories here at Monaco, and it looks as though it's going to go to one or other of these 2 teams once again. Now, let's see what's going on further down. There is Giancarlo Fisichella running in 4th place, and he now comes into the pits. He hasn't stopped yet, so this is his routine stop.
So the sole Jordan in the Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella, got up to 4th place, stops on lap 52. The Jordan team, oh, look at that.
Oh, there's been contact.
Yes, Pano
and Button, I think. It's Jenson Button who has collided.
Well, we have to wait and see. Yellow flags obviously down there, Panis and Jenson Button. I will get a view of that in a moment as well, but will this see again safety car being prepared, because these 2 cars will take a moment to be removed. Button's car in particular, in a particularly precarious part of the racetrack. Drivers must be aware. Let's look again. Well, Button dives down the inside, can't get alongside Panis. He gets in the wrong, but there's nowhere to go. Just, well, over ambitious in my view. There you see the contact, and then Well, Jensen had a pop, and Olivier Panis was sufficiently far forward to, he had no option, he couldn't do very much more than he was doing.
Another look from on-board camera, and as he turned into the corner, there was Button arriving on the inside.
Yes, and it goes into a bottleneck as you turn into the Saint-Deveau corner. Now we've got 3 cars, Renault, Toyota and BAR.
But the Cranes, as ever, doing a fine job of moving the cars very quickly out of the way and clearing that zone so that racing can continue. They've still got to get Panis' car out of the way, but it's not as much on the line as Button's car was. And the two of them just having a little chat about that after the incident. Neither of them look to be getting in a point-scoring position this afternoon. But nonetheless, you never know what can happen here. With a few more retirements, they might have been battling over a position in the top 6.
And the marshals ever efficient here in Monte Carlo, just putting little trolley jacks under that VAR to pull it away to another area of safety. The original place, which has got 2 cars in it now, well, there's no more room, so anybody else goes off at Saint-Deveau, that car will be, as we see here, the jack under the rear of the VAR, just take it to safety in that runoff area.
So let's just see how things have settled down. Pit stops mostly have been made now. It's Coulthard from Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher's a further 18 seconds behind these two. Then Jarno Trulli has now moved back into 4th position after Fisichella made his pit stop. So we've got the Renault of Trulli in 4th. Then it's Fisichella 5th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Arrows in 6th. Mika Salo a lap down, but he's in 7th in the Toyota. Barrichello a lap down in 8th place. Mark Webber is 9th. Nick Heidfeld currently in 10th place ahead of Eddie Irvine. De La Rosa is in 12th, then it's Bernaldi, and of course we've now lost Panis, Button as well, so Felipe Massa is our last runner in 14th.
And Giancarlo Fisichella just rides the curve as he comes out of the Portier corner. Through the curve, that's where his teammate Sato, who was trying to make room for Fisichella on the lap that he went off, got it all wrong. Fisichella scored points for the first time for Jordan and himself in Austria in 5th place, running now in 5th place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen some 7.1 seconds behind. And, well, we need to see Fisichella had a slow lap. That was because of the incident at Saint-Deveau. We wait to see what the lap time is for the Jordan driver vis-a-vis that for the Arrows.
Feeds in the power through the last couple of right-handers that lead around to complete his 54th lap. Coulthard some way further down the road, some 62 seconds ahead, in fact, of the Jordan there. But Fisichella putting in a quick lap, and Trulli definitely in trouble, because Fisichella's lap then 3 seconds faster than Jarno Trulli, and that's because Jarno Trulli must have some sort of mechanical problem. He is definitely struggling. The gap is still 19 seconds between the two of them, but it's closing.
Well, back to the front, and Michael Schumacher continues to hound David Coulthard. But again, that same situation that Michael Schumacher faced behind Montoya. He can get so close, but then the problem is, what is he going to do to make up the gap, but principally to get momentum to carry him past David Coulthard. And right now, really, it's going to be once again down to traffic or down to a driving error, or at worst for Coulthard, some mechanical problems.
Good first sector there from David Coulthard, but Michael Schumacher keeps the pressure on him. And again, Michael looks to be on a very quick lap, not perhaps his fastest overall. He set that on lap number 51, just a few laps ago. And Michael keeping the pressure on Coulthard. That's all he can do in this situation. These two drivers have won the last 2 races here, the last 3 races, in fact, here at Monaco. Last year it was Schumacher, the year before Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher the year before that, and it's going to go to one or other of them surely today, unless both of them run into some sort of mechanical problem.
And just looking at those live super slow-mo pictures, not an awful lot to pick and choose between the merits of the 2 cars through that swimming pool complex.
Adrian Newey, technical director at McLaren, and Ron Dennis. Can they keep it together? You know, it's been a while, just over a year, since David Coulthard had a victory. That was in Austria. And since then, it's been a bleak period for him. It's been bleak times in 2002 generally for McLaren Mercedes. They have not looked even close to winning a Grand Prix this year. This is their very real first opportunity. Now, keep an eye on this man, because he is not lapping very quickly. Jarno Trulli, well, actually, the last time he picked up the pace a little bit.
I suspect what's happened, Trulli has probably just met traffic on a lap where really he couldn't get past, or they weren't aware of him behind it. So Jarno Trulli running much nearer to his normal race pace. He's running behind Nick Heidfeld on the Sauber, but of course Heidfeld only running in 10th place and is a lap down. So this is Jarno Trulli trying to put a lap on the young German driver in the starboard. Sauber having a very, very disappointing Grand Prix here in Monte Carlo this year.
Yes, it doesn't seem to be coming together for them at all this time around. Look at how close the leaders are. This is Michael Schumacher right behind Coulthard.
And who's Coulthard behind? He's behind Enrique Bernoldi, but this time it's the race leader coming up to lap Bernoldi. Bernoldi is given a blue flag. There are blue warning lights in the cockpit. He will move over and let these two race leaders go through on this pit straight.
Let's hope that he does. Yes, he does. He moves well over to the left-hand side. Bernoldi, who held up Coulthard for many laps last year, but in that case it was a battle for position, and he was fully justified in doing that. Now that Coulthard is race leader, he does a fine job of moving cleanly offline and letting the two leaders through. And still Michael Schumacher applies the pressure.
You can see coming into the casino that Michael Schumacher able to close up to the rear of David Coulthard. Clearly the Ferrari with the Bridgestone, he's the quicker of the two cars. But David Coulthard has still got that tape in his mirrors. He doesn't know or care where Michael Schumacher is as long as he's behind him.
The view from the camera mounted just beside Michael Schumacher's helmet there. The focus, the concentration. And John, you know, how does this feel for David Coulthard? He's been in a winning position many times, but if there's one man you probably don't want breathing down your neck, it's Michael Schumacher.
This is true, but David Coulthard's raced with Michael Schumacher on many occasions. They've gone eyeball to eyeball, and David Coulthard's one of the few drivers who's been able to overtake Michael Schumacher on mirror.
So now let's just watch Michael as he comes through up past the pits once more. That is lap number 58 that is about to be completed. Coulthard crosses the line, a 1 minute 19.9 for him, a 1 minute 20.1 for this man, Michael Schumacher. The gap remaining at just under a second between them.
And we've just heard from Juan Pablo Montoya about what happened to him in the race, but also principally about the start. Why did he lose the lead? And he's been none too complimentary about the software on the launch control mechanism on his Williams BMW. Now he's obviously very upset about the day. He thought he could have a win here. He lost the lead at the start, and then it ended up with a major engine failure.
Third place for this man, Ralf Schumacher, the sole remaining Williams BMW in the race. Some 22 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. So there's a big, big gap between the top two and this car in third, but he has a lonely time because it's a long gap behind him to Jarno Trulli, some 25 seconds. So Ralf just has to maintain focus, maintain concentration. He hasn't always done that at Monaco in the past, and let's hope that he can reel off these final 20 laps safely and securely.
Well, Ralf is already calculating. If he finishes in third place, he'll get 4 points. That will give him 27 points, equal with his teammate Juan Pablo Montoya. He's driving for third place. He's not driving for second or for victory, and he's got no pressure behind him from Jarno Trulli in the Renault. So Ralph's already worked it out. The team have probably worked it out. Say, just finish the race, get on the podium. You'll get your 4 points. We'll get our 4 points, and that will give us 54 in the Manufacturers' Championship. Still well ahead of McLaren in third place.
10 points available for the win, and David Coulthard would love to take those 10 points. He's only scored 10 points in all 6 of the first Grand Prix of 2002, so he could double his score here today if he stays where he is. Michael Schumacher, of course, clear points leader, 54 points he's scored out of the 6 races. Well, not quite a maximum, but very near to it. 60 points is the maximum he could have achieved, and he scored 54 of them.
Well, there's body language, I think, that says, I'm sorry, it was my error, I tried something. I couldn't get alongside early enough, and then, of course, they came to this very narrow funnel or bottleneck as you go into Saint-Devoux and put Olivier Panis and then Button as well into a compromising position, which ended up with both of them out of the race in the crash barriers.
Looking down the field, it's the Ferraris that are providing the entertainment at the moment. It's Michael Schumacher hounding race leader David Coulthard, and the other one is Barrichello, who's right behind Mika Salo in the battle for 7th place. Same sort of gap between the two of them. We now ride with Eddie Irvine, who's scored points last 2 races here at Monaco, driving for the Jaguar team, but today it's been a matter of survival. He runs in 11th.
Yes, Eddie running in the 1 minute 21 second barrier, but I mean that's the best you can expect from the Jaguar. His teammate Pedro de la Rosa running directly behind him in 12th, and both Jaguar drivers doing the best they can with a car really which is falling so far behind, even out-qualified by the Minardi of Mark Webber for 19th place in the grid. The Jaguars 20th and 21st, and really I can't wait for the British Grand Prix to come along. That's when they expect to make this quantum leap on their aerodynamic.
listening in to a little bit of team radio. As Irvine, we change to another view now, looking over his left shoulder. The Tiger design on the crash helmet, and this is the latter part of the lap, coming past the Raskas restaurant on his right-hand side.
It's a cousin of the Tiger. It is actually a Jaguar.
Jaguar, yeah, sorry. The Jaguar on his helmet rather than the Tiger. But Coulthard comes through. Schumacher in second place. The gap has stayed at a second between them, and Ralf Schumacher still in third place.
So this battle for the lead, for victory here in Monte Carlo, one that David Coulthard would love to repeat, one that Michael Schumacher, of course, very familiar with, and if he went on to take victory, would match that up for late great Ayrton Senna there. Slight opening of the visor. David Coulthard's just letting some air circulate. Hard work, and David has really driven hard all weekend, and of course now that he's once again in the lead, having made that pit stop, great job by the McLaren team to get him in and out, and just getting some air, whatever air he can in, just to keep that composure.
Just looking at the timing screens as well at the same time. Enrique Bernoldi down in 13th place has just set the fastest mid-sector of anybody, any car on the lap just now. He's running down in 13th place in the Arrows, but he's still going pretty quickly. We're riding with Coulthard, concentrating, focusing on not making any tiny mistake, with the barriers lining every part of this track. But Coulthard seems to love the place, and he's making the most of his opportunity to run ahead of the 4-time world champion.
There's been a little bit of a change just outside the top 6. Rubens Barrichello now in 7th, because Mika Salo, we saw him very briefly, had to dive into the pits, whether it was strategy, whether it was planned. The fact is that now Salo's dropped down to 8th. Barrichello has got clear air to Heinz Harald Frentzen in 6th place. Some 20 seconds behind with some 17 laps remaining. Tall order for the Brazilian to get that final point here this afternoon.
Well, Michael Schumacher is not going to lessen the pressure in the remaining 16 laps it is now as they cross the line one more time. He is going to keep this pressure on Coulthard throughout. And there you can see, just ahead of them, Heinz Harald Frentzen running in 6th place, looking to try and score another point for the Arrows team. He managed it 2 Grand Prix ago, and he wants to do the same this time around. They looked strong in Austria. Unfortunately, the two teammates had a bit of a coming together, which didn't help. Now, look on board once again. See how close Michael Schumacher gets to the back of the McLaren. Back down the hill. Won't be long. They should catch Frentzen, I should think, soon after the chicane. And I'm sure that Frentzen will move out of the way.
And there, that little blue square on your screen is an indication that the blue flags are being waved for Heinz Harald Frentzen. He has also got, there he goes through the chicane. Just waits till the lead cars go through that. He'll not be penalised for that. That was smart, intelligent driving from the German driver in the Arrows. Just puts himself in a safe situation. Oh, Michael Schumacher so fast into that swimming pool complex.
Frentzen has a full 20 seconds advantage over the next runner on track. That is the other Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, who's now ahead of Salo, and that's because Salo's just been into the pits once again. So Barrichello has gained one position, but let's see what times they do as they come across. 1:19.7 last time, 1:19.6 from Coulthard, and a 1:19.7 from Michael Schumacher. These two are lapping consistently quickly, but Coulthard at the moment has it under control.
And all the pressure that Michael Schumacher can inflict upon David Coulthard, as we look at Mario Illen, the man who is responsible for these Mercedes-Benz V10 engines. The company's come under some criticism from not having an engine performance to match that of BMW and Ferrari in particular. Other people saying it's not entirely an engine fault, but the difficulty for anybody is that if you're behind the 8 ball, it takes time to recover. But this circuit isn't quite so engine advantageous as, let's say, Austria before, or even the next Grand Prix, of course, when we go to North America for the Canadian Grand Prix.
Time penalty for car number 21 for gaining an advantage, and that was Bernoldi. And it may well have been that middle sector time was in fact when he went through the chicane, John. Perhaps that's why we saw Bernoldi suddenly flash up with the fastest time through the mid-sector of the lap.
Yes, and if you gain an advantage, then you will be penalised. It may be something as simple as just a simple drive-through penalty, or if it was more severe, then you'd be brought in and stopped for 10 seconds. And very strict control these days on the running of a Grand Prix. And with the cameras all around the circuit and the opportunity to replay on video and see precisely what did take place, and of course the timing as well, then a driver, if he does infringe regulations, will find penalties awaiting him very shortly.
100 Grand Prix for Mika Salo, the Finn here in the Toyota. It didn't really go according to plan in the early stages, but he's lapping quite quickly at the moment. Good straight line speed from this Toyota. Their first season of Grand Prix racing has brought them a few points already. Enrique Benoldi coming into the pits for his drive-through penalty.
And he'll come, and in fact I think he just carried that penalty as drive-through. But Mika Salo in 8th place is now lapping at the speed of the two race leaders, and that's quicker than Ralf Schumacher, Trulli and Fisichella.
So some instructions to Benoldi on the oil pump and making the odd switching change. And now, who is going to? This must
Williams.
Well, it must be one Williams. It's only Ralf in the race. So Ralf Schumacher having to make a second stop. Well, we've seen him struggling for pace somewhat. He's 30 seconds ahead of Trulli. That's just about enough time to get back out in third, as long as they have a clean stop.
Well, this will be purely a tyre stop. It's not for fuel. He's slowing down. Ralf Schumacher slows down big time, coming through the chicane. Now, what is Ralf doing? Has he got a problem with the rear there? He's going straight on through the chicane. He must have a major problem. It may be a puncture or something that we're not able to see. Is that right rear? It is. It looks like the right rear is difficult to tell. Left rear doesn't look particularly good either. So Ralf Schumacher slowed. It is, I think, the left rear. Yes, there's a shredding of the left rear on Ralf Schumacher. It's probably picked up something from the carbon fibre on the circuit, and the tyre is deflating. Ralf will come in. The team will jack the rear of the car, but will be slightly down on that right rear. So they're going to change it and get him out. He's got plenty of time. It's only a tyre stop for Ralf Schumacher.
So he should be okay just to change the tyres and get back out. Plenty of time ahead of Jarno Trulli, who runs in 4th position. Now, don't break the pit lane speed limit here, Ralf. You'll be safe enough if you just get out of the pits cleanly. Jarno Trulli will still end up behind you. Trulli's just coming through the last couple of corners onto this area, but there he is now, yes, so it's a big advantage still for Ralf Schumacher. He retains 3rd place.
And indeed, he's got a very nice fresh set of tyres on his Williams BMW, and I would expect Ralf to be able to pull away quite comfortably from Jarno Trulli. As we go back to that little barrier, we see Jarno Trulli is some 4 or 5 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place.
So, and we've got Felipe Massa. Massa has made contact, wiped off the front end of the car. This looks like it might have been quite a big accident.
It is a very big accident. Massa comes down in. Oh, yes, and he comes down and he doesn't even slow down. He just basically has it looks like a brake problem for me. Look at the amount of carbon fibre dust when the car hit the barrier. Both front wheels detached from the chassis. And the young Brazilian just climbs. He was a big impact. He really didn't slow down that much, and that looked to me as if he had a problem with the brakes. His head's moving, so waiting to see the safety car once again on standby in case they need to bring this field to control under the safety car. That car badly situated. That is in the middle of the runoff area in the Saint-Deveau corner.
Nasty, frightening accident for Felipe Massa, heading straight into the barrier at virtually unabated speed. The safety car is standing by, but he seems to be getting out of the car. I should think, if anything, John, he must be winded at least. I mean, that was a heavy, heavy impact.
Yes, he went into the tyre barrier, I would say, certainly at 80 miles an hour. Looking at the pictures, the fronts were locked on. He really didn't have any way of slowing the car down. And it may have been a brake problem. We don't know. Maybe a stuck throttle. All the things that you think about as a racing driver. And there walks away. He'll be a little bit bruised and sore on Monday morning, but good to see the young Brazilian after a very, very tough Grand Prix. I suspect mostly he's really winded by that impact. He would have had some whiplash, of course, as well. And a head-on impact into a tyre barrier like that, never the most pleasant way to attack a barrier.
So the safety car does not need to be deployed. There'll be relief there at the Sauber team that their driver's okay. Take another look at this and look at the speed he comes in at.
Well, he's got the fronts locked on, but the rear still driving. That's always the question. He had no means of slowing the car down. Can't tell whether it was the throttle or not, but something clearly was not working, and that car went in at very high speed. Comes, hits the barrier, 2 layers of tyre barrier, and then springs back. So Felipe Massa getting one of those horrible moments. A racing driver always fears that something mechanical goes wrong when you're going into an area such as the Saint-Deveau corner. There's nothing you can do. He has fully locked brakes, no steering control whatsoever, and fortunately there was something there yielding to slow that car down and prevent any further injury to Felipe Massa.
Well, his car is added to the increasing number of stricken Grand Prix machines that are down there at Saint-Devote, and he adds to our list of retirements. We now have 13 cars still running in this race. That's still up on the last couple of years. We've seen 10 finishers in the last 2 races here at Monaco. Another view once more.
Yes, again, to me it looks more like a throttle-related problem, because he's got the front brakes locked. There's no sign of the rear brakes locking, which indicates that the power of the engine overcomes the power of the brakes, and all he can do is sit there and wait for that inevitable collision. And you know, you can see the marshal, in fact, you see that marshal just running to the right of your screen. Well, he saw it coming, and once again, I mean, the speed of that was more than 80 miles an hour. That was in excess. That was 100 miles an hour, and I think really maybe it was more a reaction to the impact than it was to seeing what was happening. And any racing driver who's ever experienced that kind of problem in the past knows that's the one that you always dread. You've got no control over what looks to me like either a rear brake failure or a possible throttle sticking.
We have a new fastest lap for Rubens Barrichello. He's running in 7th place, but he's just set a new lap record. So the other Ferrari going quickly, closing up on Heinz-Harald Frentzen for what is 6th place. So Frentzen in the arrows is going to come under some pressure soon from the Brazilian in the 2nd Ferrari. Up front, you're watching the 2 leaders. David Coulthard still in charge of this race. 10 laps to go now, some 20 miles. If he can stay in front, this would be a superb victory for David Coulthard, but he's still got to complete it, make the distance, and Michael Schumacher looking for any little mistakes.
And I think Michael Schumacher really resigned to the fact that David Coulthard has got the legs today of Ferrari. And Michael, well, maybe it's a good PR exercise not to win here and let McLaren go on and take victory as we watch Rubens Barrichello once again, fastest man on the circuit lap after lap. 1:18.6 was his previous best, 1:18.023, yet again a new lap record for the Brazilian.
Now only 3.5 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. It may be less than the predicted 2 laps before he's on the tail of the arrows, but as we know, it's one thing to get there, but then he's still got to find a way past.
But also he's taking lumps of time out of Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan in 5th place. So as he takes time from Fisichella, he's doing very much the same thing from Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Our race leader comes out of the tunnel, down to the chicane once more, past the harbour front here. And he's got to find a way past the Jaguar of Pedro de la Rosa, the other Jaguar of Eddie Irvine, just ahead of him on the road. And let's just watch the super slow-mo. You can see the suspension, the stiff suspension, hardly allowing the car to move. The car actually bounces over the curbs there.
And there's really an opportunity to see the deflection that you get in these Grand Prix tyres. Michelin and Bridgestone, different philosophies of tyre manufacture construction. So Coulthard gets through safety, Michael Schumacher gets through safety, Eddie Irvine pulls over to the right of track. Both Jaguars drivers being very polite and having their own private battle all the way down now in 10th and 11th place.
8 laps to go now. Schumacher did close up just a little bit on that lap, a 1:20.709 on that lap, and Ross Brawn, the master tactician, really nothing he can do now except wait to see what his man Michael Schumacher can see how close Schumacher is to the back of the McLaren.
Well, maybe the word is going out, Michael, we want these 10 points. We're not going to be satisfied to see you finish second to David Coulthard, but David Coulthard, a very steely, tough competitor, and somebody who is not intimidated by Michael Schumacher, and also somebody who Michael Schumacher has got respect for, and he knows that if he tries something on, David Coulthard will defend. He's not going to concede.
Schumacher follows through, 70 laps completed now. All of the front runners have made their stops. Now we have to focus on this battle for the lead and also on what's on Salo.
Big shunt for Mika Salo, and that's on the way up into the casino. He's lost it in just on the entry into the casino square, coming up the hill.
Almost where Eddie Irvine crashed the other day in the Jaguar when he went off on somebody else's oil.
The Mazanet corner. Mika Salo, watch what happens. Puts the brakes on. Well, hit the curb, hit the barrier on the inside. He had a slight locking brake on the right front, but he hit the barrier that threw the car straight across the track and slams into the barrier on the right side into the Mazanet.
What a disappointing way to finish his 100th Grand Prix. And he's been 4 times in the points here in Monaco, but it's not going to happen this time. A shame for Toyota after their best qualifying performance to date.
Rubens Barrichello now right up on the rear of Heinz-Harald Frentzen for the final point in this race, 6th place. Getting up to the back of Frenson's one thing, with 7 laps to go, passing him will be entirely different. And in the meantime, Giancarlo Fisichella really running very quickly also to defend his 5th place and get 2 further points for Jordan.
Here we are riding with Rubens Barrichello then, and Frenson's car slipping and sliding around as we watch them come through the tunnel up to, again, 180 miles an hour, back onto the brakes and very slow through the chicane itself.
You can hear Michael really backing off quite early. This is the view of Mika Salo. Watch as he turns in. Something locks the right front, then he clips the barrier on the inside, then all of a sudden he's just a passenger, and the Toyota swaps ends, goes into the barrier, left rear first.
Well, a very strange looking accident there. It's certainly something went wrong initially. The smoke coming off that right front. Looks perhaps a front wheel bearing failed on that right front, and that effectively pitched him into the barrier on the left-hand side.
It's certainly not a part of the track or a corner that you'd expect a driver of Salo's experience to make an error like that. And there was the hint of a wobble, and that could have just been sufficient to cause the problem to start.
So here we are, the battle for 6th position, with the arrows of the very experienced German racer Heinz-Harald Frentzen ahead of the similarly experienced Rubens Barrichello. And well, it's no good waving blue flags. I don't know what flag that was being waved there, but this is a battle for position.
And Rubens, of course, in the quicker car, but really has to find a position, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen too canny and too experienced to offer that up. Also for Arrows to get 1 more point in the championship to go along with that they scored earlier this year would be a real treasure. Funds, of course, related to performance. As we go back to the action, Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place.
Ralf Schumacher a long way behind the race leaders. He's over a minute behind now from Coulthard and Michael Schumacher. 72 laps completed, 6 laps remaining in the glorious sunshine on the streets of Monaco, the most prestigious Grand Prix of the year. It's being run in absolutely picture-perfect conditions, and the fans are soaking up a race of true drama throughout. Coulthard has led from the very start, but he has not had it all his own way, and he still has to fend off Schumacher.
Oh, there's a replay. This is Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Rubens Barrichello. Can't get much closer than that. Again, the blue flag's being waved, but of course it is important not to worry about them in this situation, because this is a battle for position.
Now we look from Frentzen's car and looking back at Barrichello's car, and of course Fisichella's a bit further ahead of them up the road, quite a long way ahead in fact, so they won't have to worry about him at this stage.
Just looking at the rear of Frentzen's car, that left rear tire, quite a lot of wear on that inside shoulder, maybe affecting the handling, but basically he's got a car of greater performance behind him. So for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 5 laps to go, really having to just try not offer up opportunities to Rubens Barrichello.
A little bit of a lock up there for Frentzen, but he keeps it under control. Desperately wants to finish in 6th place, take that final World Championship point. As you say, it's so crucial to this small team, and having taken the point there in Barcelona, this would be a useful addition.
But also Fisichella in 5th place has now got a battle of his own with Jarno Trulli, less than half a second behind the Renault. So Jordan in 5th place, looking to make that 4th place.
Frentzen crashed out of the race here last year, coming out of the tunnel, as you mentioned, a little bit like Takuma Sato. He just needs to keep it all together this time. 4 laps remaining for him to hold on to 6th place. Climbing up the hill once more, and Barrichello, despite having that much faster Ferrari, cannot find a way of sneaking past. He has to try and force Frentzen into a mistake.
Well, what Frentzen's doing, just watching this rearward-facing camera, is he slows down a lot before he enters the corner, which then forces Barrichello to slow down, which then, of course, gives Frentzen the opportunity to sprint away. So it's a real seesaw battle between the Arrows and the Ferrari, but Frentzen really using all that experience and guile to try and unsettle Rubens Barrichello.
Back with the leaders once more. David Coulthard versus Michael Schumacher. More traffic to deal with as they come through the swimming pool section. It's Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber who's just ahead, and it's a difficult part of the track to try and let someone through, and he is definitely holding them up a little bit as they come round through the last corner. Now he gets out of the way, and Coulthard is able to accelerate cleanly, and Michael Schumacher didn't get a clean enough run there to be able to apply more pressure. The nerves down in the McLaren pit must be building.
And look at the Ferrari pit equally there, as on tenterhooks, ready to see whether, now with 3 laps to go, Michael Schumacher can make one clear overtaking manoeuvre. He's strong through the casino section of the circuit, down the hill into the Mirabeau. We watch them as they enter, but David Coulthard again places the McLaren in such a way it gives Michael Schumacher no options. Jordan ahead, Giancarlo Fisichella. Now he's in a battle for fourth place with Jarno Trulli, 0.4 of a second behind, so first and second catching up to fourth and fifth.
Michael Schumacher never giving up, and you know, there have been world champions in the past that might have said second place, 6 points. None of my major rivals really in a particularly strong position. Ralf Schumacher will move up to joint second probably in the series, but Michael Schumacher does not back off. He still keeps the pressure on Coulthard, and maybe that's just an indicator of why he is a 4 times world champion. He does not settle for second place.
Well, good to see Felipe Massa walking back, clearly still shocked and stunned by that very frightening accident some laps ago into the Saint-Deveau corner, but clearly no physical problems. Here's the battle for fourth place. Giancarlo Fisichella on the Jordan, Jarno Trulli, a former Jordan driver, in the Renault. Fisichella's in problems.
Yeah, he's in trouble.
So he let through race leader and Michael Schumacher as well.
So being very gentlemanly, despite the fact that he had a battle of his own to deal with.
But he'll hope that that'll get paid back. He'll tag on to the back of Michael Schumacher, and then when the 2 leaders go through Jarno Trulli, he might try and slip through. It's going to be questionable. He's close enough. He hasn't retained enough gap to Michael Schumacher. Though when Trulli has to then allow leader to go through, I don't think Fisichella's going to be close enough to make it up.
Well, he might be, because Trulli hasn't been able to move out of the way yet. And Michael Schumacher sensing, and maybe there's a little opportunity here somewhere through the tunnel. Coulthard has to follow the Renault of Jarno Trulli through this one. Trulli surely will move out of the way. On the exit, the blue flag waves. Trulli indeed gets out of the way of Coulthard and gets out of the way of Schumacher. And here comes Fisichella. Fisichella on the attack. Oh, and he doesn't quite make it, not yet anyway.
Well, he really had a good opportunity to put himself into position, but we go to Joe Ramirez, former McLaren, almost a god in McLaren. That battle, Fisichella, Trulli did a good job to let these two through and not give Fisichella too much of an opportunity, but they're back, nose to gearbox. And just on a word from Felipe Massa, you thought the poor guy would have had a minute to catch his breath. Well, we spoke to our guys in the pit lane, and he said he felt he had a rear brake failure. That's what caused that very unpleasant looking accident at the Saint-Deveau.
We're on to the final lap here, and David Coulthard has driven superbly all afternoon, and it looks as though he's going to be able to take his second win around the street. But Michael Schumacher still there, still looking for any chance, and Coulthard has to keep it together. He's driven absolutely brilliantly. 1 lap remaining, less than 1 lap now, and he's just got to keep it together over the remaining mile or so that will lead him to the checkered flag.
Well, I don't think any principal threat's going to come from Michael Schumacher. All he now needs is to make sure he drives cleanly, doesn't make any errors, doesn't maybe anticipate victory before he comes across start-finish line. Out of the tunnel for the last time in a racing lap, down to this very tight and easily made error chicane.
The last few corners for David Coulthard. The support from the British fans on the harbour there as they see their man heading towards victory. McLaren, Mercedes have done it again in Monaco. Surely it'll be 12 victories in some 19 starts, and that is a brilliant achievement. Their first victory of the year. Michael Schumacher is beaten for only the 2nd time in 2002. David Coulthard wins in Monaco after not putting a wheel wrong for 78 laps of the toughest track on the calendar.
And an absolutely superb drive from David Coulthard. Took the lead when the lights went out. Really never challenged, and for me this is one of the finest wins I've seen from David Coulthard. He's had a tough time over the last year in McLaren and really lapped the entire field up to 3rd place. Now, David Coulthard sometimes has not been the favourite son of McLaren. Kimi Raikkonen now has taken over from Mika Hakkinen. David Coulthard's drive today, superb.
Fantastic.
Okay, well done, David. Great job. That has to be your best ever, David. That has to be your best ever.
I told you, no presents. But thank you.
Well, that was Team Boss from Dennis talking to David Coulthard. And maybe we'll see a smile on Ron's face, which has been lacking all year.
You could hear Adrian Newey there as well, also thanking David. What a relief this is to the team, John. They've had a torrid time in the early part of the 2002 season. It really hasn't gone their way. They've had a couple of 3rd place finishes, well 3 in all, with Raikkonen as well. but the first time that they've had a car win a Grand Prix this year, and the first win for David since Austria last season.
Look at that happiness in the pit, David's girlfriend, and the whole team absolutely over the moon with the victory. A victory, and maybe in some respects they didn't anticipate prior to this weekend. And a Grand Prix then almost 2 minutes faster than last year's Grand Prix when Michael Schumacher took victory.
Well, we saw a race that David Coulthard dominated, but it was that middle section of the race, John, when Michael Schumacher made the earlier pit stop that was so crucial, and that's really where Coulthard managed to get the job done.
Yes, but also I think we should give great credit to the team, because we saw the problems that David Coulthard had. The team were able to put into effect remedies to prevent that problem. That was smoke coming out. In fact, it was on the left-hand bank of the engine. We thought David Coulthard was heading for retirement before mid-distance, yet the team were able to, this by means of telemetry from the pits to the car on the circuit, rectify a cure, and that is a real team victory. But I think the credit on the day goes to David Coulthard. A superb drive under pressure for the entire 78 laps.
Well, how must this feel? His second victory, and to become a multiple winner here at Monaco. He joins a very, very select group of people, some of the greatest drivers in Grand Prix history, and David joins that list as a multiple winner around the streets of Monaco. Out he gets! Coulthard the winner, and he is going to enjoy this moment to its full.
Well, that was one tough race. You can see his overalls matted with sweat, and he bows towards the royal family that are here, and he will very shortly go up onto the podium and receive the winner's prize. David Coulthard thoroughly delighted there, his team, the guys that work with him day in, day out at Grand Prix, and really he's done a job for them here this afternoon.
He's such a great bloke, and very popular within the team. And the congratulations from Michael Schumacher, and he beat Michael fair and square today. He's done it before, and he's done it in true style on a track that Michael, to a certain extent, considers his own. He loves the place, but today he did not have the answer. Part of that was from qualifying, but a lot of it was from the race itself.
Well, a lot of it did come from the qualifying, but nevertheless, David, he never put a wheel wrong, drove a wheel-perfect Grand Prix under pressure. Initially from Juan Pablo Montoya, and then after Montoya went out from Michael Schumacher. And well, I think they'll be partying tonight in Monte Carlo, David's hotel, and all the friends, guests that are staying there will have a special evening indeed.
Little discussion going on between the Schumacher brothers. Ralph taking third place for Williams BMW, delighted with that, no doubt. And David Coulthard receiving the winner's trophy for the second time here at Monaco, and presented by Prince Rainier. Great to see that just come out of hospital. Going to be 80 years old on Friday, but here for the prestigious Monaco Grand Prix. An event that really is so concentrated in the minds of Formula One fans and motorsport fans around the world as the blue ribbon event of Grand Prix racing. Michael Schumacher receiving the trophy for second. Princess Caroline presenting Ralf Schumacher with his trophy for third.
Ralf Schumacher étant donc troisième, a été récompensé.
Time for the national anthem. A very happy David Coulthard. Girlfriend Simone there applauding his efforts this afternoon. He really showed true class in that drive, beating Michael Schumacher in a fair fight. And McLaren Mercedes taking their first victory of the year, 10 points to David Coulthard, doubling his points in the championship and bringing him up a little bit in the overall standings. Good news for him. Barrichello also fought well today, but had problems, wasn't able to quite get into the points as it turned out. So Ferrari not having quite the dominant run that they had in Austria last time out, but there's a very happy Ron Dennis as well.
Yes, and Ron gets his hands on the trophy. Of course, the trophies go to the team, and if David Coulthard wants the trophy, well, he can get a replica made, and of course David will have to pay for it. Well, I think that's the first of many mouthfuls of champagne David and his family friends, Simone, his girlfriend, Jürgen Herbert, we saw there, chief at Daimler-Benz, Daimler-Chrysler, Norbert Haug, sports director at Mercedes-Benz, and they've waited for this a long time. 7th Grand Prix of the year. Martin Whitmarsh, MD of the factory. Michael Schumacher, well, I think he's delighted with his 2nd place. Probably wasn't so confident about a victory, but nevertheless didn't stop trying. But in those final laps, I think it was pretty evident that Michael wasn't going to make a last lap ditch attack on David Coulthard. He'd rather take his 6 points and go on to fight in Canada in 2 weeks' time.
A look at the Drivers' Championship, and a tie for 2nd place now behind Michael Schumacher. 27 points apiece for Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya. Coulthard now up to 4th. Got to see a victory here. And then the rest of the points scorers so far this season. Jarno Trulli getting 4th place today, and those his first points of the season, so that's great news for the Italian, who's driven well all year but just hasn't had the luck. Fisichella scoring 2 points again, as he did last time out in Austria, and the final point to Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Arrows.
And now the 3 winners, David Coulthard, Michael and Ralf Schumacher, jumping on board one of the courtesy vehicles, because the press room and the unilateral room where Michael's just being taken away to get on board for that press conference, because of the location of Monte Carlo, all these sites are all over the place, so they'll be taken, and hopefully very shortly we'll hear the story of Michael, of David Coulthard, and of course of Ralf Schumacher. Mansur Roger, partner of Ron Dennis, Mercedes-Benz, and Francois Mazet, one of the officials here, speaking to Mansur Roger. Mazet, a driver in Formula 2 in the early 70s, and now one of the officials in the Automobile Club de Monaco.
Well, Schumacher still receiving a huge amount of support and applause, and perhaps Austria is soon forgotten as he is beaten here by McLaren Mercedes. No talk of team orders. This was a battle between 3 different manufacturers all weekend long, and at the end of the day it was McLaren Mercedes. David Coulthard wins ahead of Michael Schumacher, with Ralf Schumacher 3rd. In fact, we have 6 different manufacturers there in the top 6 places, and that just shows you a very open race. A lot of experience amongst those drivers. Trulli, Fisichella and Frentzen using the experience of many, many Grand Prix to get themselves into the points. Barrichello just missing out in 7th, no points from 7th down. Heidfeld, Irvine and De La Rosa all finishing the race, but the 2 Jaguar drivers disappointingly 2 laps down. The other finishers, Mark Webber and Enrique Bernoldi.
And in a way you have to feel sorry for the 2 Jaguar drivers. They did a great job, kept the car off the wall, finished nose to tail, but just totally uncompetitive at the minute.
Many drivers not classified. Mika Salo sadly going out towards the end of the race. Massa had that rear brake failure. Panis and Button tangled together. Montoya had engine failure. Had a part to play on the podium, but I think he would have been pushed back to 3rd at least with Michael Schumacher's pace. Villeneuve out. Raikkonen, of course, in a dramatic incident as well involving Barrichello, which put him out eventually, although he did come back out. Jung, Sato and McNish all out of the Grand Prix, but David Coulthard taking victory. Well, a moment of delight, fully deserved, as McLaren take their 12th win around the streets of Monaco, their first win since the American Grand Prix last year. And maybe this is a sign of improvement. We know, though, that at most tracks this year, the car doesn't quite have the competitiveness, particularly of the Ferrari, and probably not of the Williams. But on this occasion, everything came right for them.
Yes, well, if there's ever going to be a racetrack in the calendar, then Monte Carlo was going to be the one which would have given them the best opportunity, because from here we go to Canada, which is an out-and-out power circuit, and they expect to see Ferrari and BMW once again being the dominant teams. But of course, success like this for a team which is, let's say, McLaren by their normal standards are down, you know, it just transforms people's attitudes, the morale, the spirit, will be raised, and McLaren, believe me, are nothing but fighters, and they're not going to just stand back and just let the other two teams run away with these victories.
Rubens Barrichello ended up with the fastest lap of the race, so congratulations to him, despite not scoring any points. And no points awarded for fastest lap, of course, but the honour is there nonetheless. Barrichello fastest in the Ferrari. Michael Schumacher was also very fast in his car and his chase of David Coulthard. But great to see plenty of support for Coulthard here. He owns the Columbus Hotel in Monaco, and I think there's going to be some huge parties there tonight. Michael Schumacher with the fastest speed trap figures today.
I just checked where David Coulthard is. He's not even in the top 10. That's the story of the race for McLaren. They've got a car which is a good car, works well around here. David Coulthard down to 13, 290, some 6 kilometres down. Doesn't seem an awful lot, but over the course of a long straight, that affects the performance of a driver. And McLaren and Mercedes-Benz clearly will want to do something about that sooner than later, but it does take time.
Well, time to cool off after all the excitement of the Grand Prix, but time for us to make our way over to the press conference, where David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher are ready to answer some questions.
A thoroughly exciting 60th Monaco Grand Prix victory to David Coulthard for McLaren, Michael Schumacher second for Ferrari, and Ralf Schumacher third for Williams. David, your 12th Grand Prix win, but it's been just over a year since your last one. How do you feel?
It's unbelievable. I feel fantastic because, well, naturally we've had a difficult start to the season. It was looking pretty difficult for us to win a Grand Prix, and our hopes were pinned on coming to Monaco that we could have a good performance. Obviously that's been the case, and the traction control that obviously caused me some problems last year worked fantastically this year, and then it was just a question of keeping it off the barriers.
Now, there seemed to be around lap 30 some smoke coming from the back of your car for several laps. Were you aware of that, and did the team spot it and tell you to do something to your engine to stop it continuing like that, or indeed blowing up?
Yeah, no, I did. I felt that for a few laps as if things were tightening up a little bit, so obviously at that point when I could see some smoke when I was coming out of Casino, and I thought this doesn't look good, but I radioed to the team. They said all the systems were working normally, so I just ignored it, and thankfully it didn't cause a problem.
Well, congratulations, David. Michael, you spent an awful lot of the race looking very closely at the back of Juan Pablo Montoya's car. Do you think, had you managed to get away, get past him, you'd have left him behind you?
I think I did. I mean, we did a pit stop and they did a pit stop. I'm not sure whether he did already his pit stop or not, but I think we were by far fast enough to stay in front after the pit stop. It was a matter of David, obviously, as he put up a decent gap between Montoya and himself, which, yeah, well, if the traffic we had within the first couple of laps after our pit stop, we wouldn't have had this. It would have been very tight. But anyway, I mean, they did a great job, and they really deserved this win today.
But when you closed up in the last 20 laps, you were right on the tail of David's car. Did you ever think there might be a moment when you could make a move, or were you also aware, with Montoya retired, that if you finished in second, you'd have a 33-point advantage?
I knew both, and I kept on pushing, because in Monaco, nothing is for certain, and you have really to go until the last lap, last corner, and that's what I did. I was trying to get my opportunity, but he drove a fine race and didn't give me any chance.
Michael, thank you. Ralf, Juan Pablo was running ahead of you, in fact, towards the second third of the race, and then he suddenly slowed and pulled to one side on the start-finish straight. Do you know what his problem was, and did the team then tell you to watch out for the same on your car?
Well, it was definitely not a team order, so that was not the case. No, I think he had a problem, technical problem on the backside of his car. I don't know exactly what it was, but he knew that he couldn't go as quick, so he let me by.
Now, you had a problem of your own. You had to come in for a second pit stop towards the end. Did that tyre suddenly go wrong, or was it something that was gradual, your left rear tyre?
No, it suddenly went away. I'd have to check with the team what it was. I certainly got via radio that there was something wrong with it. We luckily had enough of a gap really to pit again and to come in front of Trulli again.
Ralf, thank you. Thanks. Back to you, David. You said coming to Monaco that it was a race that, unlike the ones earlier this season, you felt the McLaren-Mercedes combination could be competitive. Do you think the same will be true in Canada?
Well, obviously Canada's a very different circuit, and even when we think to last year when we were quite competitive in the first half of the season, I think we were on the second row there. So it may be a different story in Montreal, but nonetheless I think we're all going to enjoy this victory. They're difficult to come by, especially in this season, and I'm delighted that I was able to win this race for the McLaren team.
Thank you very much. Now, Michael and Ralph, if you'd like to speak.
So, a delighted David Coulthard, and deservedly so after a great performance. Just a quick note as well, John, it's Ralf Schumacher's first ever finish around Monaco, so he's got one in the bag now, and it was a good, solid third place. He didn't have the pace of these lead two, and I think, as Michael said there, I don't think Montoya really would have been able to match Schumacher after the pit stops.
No, I think that Michael Schumacher in the race was the quickest car. I mean, we saw from Rubens Barrichello, for example, when Barrichello was in clear air, the speed that he could run at. Michael acknowledges that, it's all about qualifying. They didn't get the job done. Started in the second row of the grid, couldn't make up position, which of course David Coulthard did so successfully. And Juan Pablo Montoya, not particularly complimentary about the software in the launch control system on his Williams BMW. Nevertheless, Monaco is a special racetrack. It's not just about the race, it's about the build-up on the Thursday practice, then into Saturday morning qualifying. And that Montoya and Williams did a great job. Sadly for Montoya.